Inside a grand chamber, a young man doubts the sanity of fighting fellow humans. Joshua, the knight's production mage, accuses Lug of trying to steal territory. Loge, the knight's captain, slams the table, outraged at being called a thief. A memory shows Loge as a valiant commander, fighting the Demon King's army. A dark panel marks the moment he began to change. The flashback traces Loge's slide into a decadent noble life of non-stop parties. Lug violently silences an off-panel dissenter who calls the plan an invasion. Joshua laments that Loeb, who he once respected as the oldest member, now only complains. He refuses to use his magic to craft weapons that kill innocent people. Anguished, he pleads with Log to be the man he once was. Joshua says he cannot work for an order that attacks its own people. Locke's face is shadowed with quiet fury as he listens to the play. Cutting Joshua off, he calls his name sharply and dismissively. Loeb says with complete contempt that he does not need Joshua. Grabbing a dagger, he blames Joshua for their inability to fight because of bad equipment. Other knights gossip that production mages drain the treasury and can be replaced. The dagger clatters to the floor as Loge shouts that this is why they cannot fight. Joshua quietly asks Loge whether he is truly no longer needed in the order. Loeb says coldly he doesn't need anyone who won't follow his orders. Delivering one last cruel insult, he tells the filthy goldbreaker to get lost. I fondly remember a younger Loeb praising Joshua's swords as the world's best. Crushed and heartbroken, Joshua whispers Loge's name and accepts his fate. Shoulders slumped, he turns and walks out of the meeting room. Leaving, he hears the cruel laughter of his former comrades echo behind him. After leaving the order, Joshua traveled south to the front lines to look for work. Sighing, he considers how to make a living with his production magic. He can turn raw materials into almost anything. Traveling light, he is accompanied only by his small slime companion Wiz. A sudden rustle in the nearby bushes makes him flinch with alarm. Edging toward the sound, he is followed by his slime companion. A young blonde woman, tattered and injured, emerges from the foliage. Noticing she's bleeding, he rushes to her side and asks what happened. She turns and firmly tells a group of approaching men to stop. 3 slave hunters appear, bragging about the fine jewel they have captured. Armed men loom menacingly over their captured wolf pelt. Joshua pulls the woman behind him and faces the illegal slave hunters. When they realize they've been spotted, the hunters decide to eliminate the witness. Calm and focused, Joshua extends his hand and says a single command to absorb. In an instant, the axes and the hunters' hands disappear, leaving them completely bewildered. They cry out, confused, asking where their weapons have gone. Joshua describes how he took apart and rebuilt the absorbed axis. Preparing to counterattack, he calls out the name of his new weapon, Steel Arrow. A volley of sharp projectiles flies forward, piercing the unprepared hunters. The blonde woman stared in disbelief that he defeated them with a single strike. Joshua admits he felt nervous, but his opponents weren't that tough. As chaos erupts, the captured wolf seizes a chance to escape. Turning to the woman, he smiles kindly and checks if she is okay. Overwhelmed, she thanks him for saving her and then collapses from her injuries. Rushing to her side, he prepares to cast a healing spell. When the magic takes hold, she murmurs it feels pleasantly warm. He realizes the stomach wound could reopen and prepares to treat it. His crafting skill instantly produces a roll of clean bandages. He asks to bandage her wound, and she readily agrees. He pulls the bandage snug and tells her it will hold for a while. Thanking him profusely, she introduces herself as Ilya, a demon. Joshua introduces himself, and she repeats his name softly. Reeling from blood loss, Ilya staggers and Joshua steps in to catch and steady her. Concerned she could be attacked again, he offers to walk her home. Apologizing for the trouble, she gratefully accepts his kind offer. He reassures her and asks his slime companion Wiz to carry his backpack. Then he easily lifts the flustered Ilya into his arms and carries her. Visibly embarrassed, she blushes at the sudden intimate gesture. When he offers an alternative, she quietly agrees to be carried. With the defeated hunters in mind, he decides to gather their weapons and armor. One gesture makes all the gear disappear in a magical poof. Explaining to a confused Ilya, he says he stored everything in a magic vault. After finishing their business, they set off through the forest. Ilya points to a clearing and says it's her village. Spear-wielding demon villagers respond to their arrival with immediate hostility. Meadow, the horned girl, hurries forward, relieved to have found Ilya. She then focuses on Joshua and identifies him as a human. Meta brandishes her spear and commands him to release Ilya immediately. Ilya steps in quickly and shouts that Joshua saved her. Meta makes clear she deeply doubts a human would do such a thing. Frustration builds in Ilya as her friend refuses to believe her. Other armed demons stand guard, faces grim and tired. Joshua gently puts Ilya down and says he does not want to fight. Ilya grabs his arm and pleads for him to stay until she can repay his kindness. Tears in her eyes, she blames herself for her lack of strength. Joshua looks at the distraught Ilya and murmurs her name with concern. A villager's shout about trouble interrupts their emotional conversation. A man rushes in saying a young man was gored by an armored boar. Another demon reacts in frustration after warning others not to fight such creatures. Joshua spots a massive boar, a monster far stronger than 10 human hunters. Ilya tugs Joshua's sleeve to get his attention through the commotion. She asks him to wait in the village so she can repay his favor by helping. She explains she knows simple recovery magic and thinks she can help. The group hurries toward a small cluster of houses where a crowd has gathered. They arrive to find anxious villagers gathered around a badly injured man. Apologizing to Ilya, the man explains he only wanted meat for his children. Joshua watches the scene with a thoughtful, sympathetic look. He realizes the man's reckless actions came from a father's love. Kneeling beside the man, Ilya tells him to relax as she gets ready to help. She tells Joshua the person saved her, and he decides to stop the bleeding. Joshua casts a basic healing spell, but it is not enough. Seeing the bleeding won't stop, the healer prepares to cauterize the wound. Joshua steps forward and asks his slime companion Wiz for help. A small piece of slime snaps off and lands in his palm. He says he will make it into a potion and use it wisely. The slime turns into a thick, viscous liquid in his outstretched palm. Joshua warns the injured demon to brace himself because the potion he is applying will sting. His eyes widen in surprise as he stammers that it doesn't hurt at all. An onlooker gasps in shock as the man's severe bleeding suddenly stops. Joshua realizes his slime jelly potion acts as both a bandage and a medicine. Amazed, Ilya gasps at how a wound that was nearly fatal has healed so completely. Staring in awe, a horned girl declares the miraculous healing an act of the gods. The healed man pushes himself up, feels his side, and is astonished to find he is still alive. His overjoyed family gathers around him and offers their sincere thanks for saving his life. Ilya is deeply grateful and wonders how she will ever repay Joshua for his kindness. He urges her to rest and heal her wounds instead of worrying about repayment. Ilya tries to stand but wobbles from weakness, and a horned girl rushes to steady her. Panting, Ilya is urged by the horned girl to rest for now because she is still too weak. Joshua takes charge, promising to keep the healed man where he is. The group walks away, Ilya leaning on her friends for support as they head back. Meta, the horned girl, gives Joshua a suspicious, hostile glare. Drawing a deep, steady breath, she turns back to face him. Meta slams her hands down, bows deeply, and formally introduces herself, thanking him. Joshua brushes off her thanks and tries to leave, but Meta stops him on Ms. Ilya's orders. He realizes the chief's orders are absolute and is surprised that Ilya is the leader. Meta admits that despite her people's resentment and fear of humans, Joshua seems different. Her expression softens when she sees he is different from the others. Joshua waits patiently while Meta gets ready to say more to him. A desperate resolve hardens her expression as she clenches her fist. Grabbing Joshua's hands, she pleads for his help. Meta pleads earnestly with him to teach them his magic, insisting any kind will do. She tells of their plight, how other monsters and humans shun them even though he saved them. Meta reveals monsters prize their horns, implying they are hunted for them. Desperate, she offers him her whole body, but he quickly tells her to stop. Gathering herself, she admits she does not have the education to teach magic herself. However, Meta reveals she can make tools. Joshua brightens, realizing making tools is a production mage's job. Confidently, he offers a counter-proposal to make tools for her village. Met's face breaks into a radiant, hopeful smile as he asks if he's serious. Joshua inspects a pile of crude spears and identifies them as the village's current weapons. He confirms they are simply built, with branch handles and stone or bone heads. Pausing, he weighs their tactical and material limitations. He asks Meta about their range capabilities, and she says very few people can use both. Joshua decides to create weapons that anyone can pick up and use. His suggestion of a new weapon, crossbows, leaves Meta completely confused because the term is unfamiliar. After saying he'll make the first one, he prepares his crafting magic. A complete crossbow appears in his hands, leaving Meadow stunned by its sudden arrival. In a calm voice, he explains how it's made and offers the new weapon for her to hold. Meta inspects the unfamiliar object and notes it resembles a cross between a bow and an axe. Joshua tells his slime companion, Wiz, to place branches outside for target practice. From afar, he calls out that he will hit the target, surprising his companion. Skeptical, Meadow doubts he can hit anything from that distance. He fires and the bolt hits the target with a loud bang, delivering a powerful impact. Meta stammers at how accurate he is, and he cheerfully invites her to try it. Meta nods firmly and agrees to practice before they go hunting to try it out. A group of small, horned children watch her practice, their faces full of awe. Meta's shot hits the target and snaps a branch in two. Pleased with her improved aim, she calls the crossbow an amazing weapon, and Joshua praises her. Meta puffs out her chest and reveals the Ashura crest, giving her mastery over any weapon. Joshua wonders if demi-human crests differ from human crests. Meta clenches her fist and excitedly declares her a sure sign she will become all-powerful. Joshua correctly guesses it must be a combat crest. Buoyed by her power, he suggests they use it for hunting. Another girl suggests they hunt wild boars, smaller armored versions. Joshua agrees to the plan, and Meta nods with determination as she accepts. He points out the crossbow is good at range, but they need a plan for close encounters. Asked about her best weapon, Meta admits she fights more often with clubs. Feeling inspired, Joshua decides to craft a weapon that suits her style better. He forges a formidable flail that Meta says feels right in her hands. Confident, she says she has nothing to fear with this weapon. Carrying their new gear, they headed into the wilderness to hunt. Meta-san spots their prey and points to a single boar in the distance. They watch the boar, noticing it is alone and fully absorbed in its meal. Joshua spots its head as a soft target and asks Meta whether she can hit it. With practiced skill, she swings the flail, sending the spiked ball flying through the air. The weapon strikes the boar's head squarely with a sickening final thud. Stunned by her success, Meta says she did it. Trembling with excitement, she is amazed at how easily she took down the formidable creature. Joshua smiles, pleased with how their new weapon and her skill performed. After congratulating her on her great work, he suggests they find another one. They stand over their first kill, their partnership already proven. After bringing down 3 boars, Meta lets out an excited shout, but Joshua shushes her. She apologizes quickly after realizing she was too loud. A massive armored boar emerges from the trees, drawn to the noise. Panicked, Meta blames herself for drawing the dangerous creature with the scent of blood. She tells Joshua to run and offers to act as a decoy, but he stops her. He asks if she thinks she can take it down, noting they are tamed by the Demon King's army. When he was a kid, he fought one with his childhood friend Loeb. He quickly comes up with a plan and says he will stop the simple-minded creature from moving. He asks Meta to hit its head with her flail when he makes an opening. Joshua stands firm, resolved not to be as weak as he was as a child. When the board charges, he steels himself, refusing to accept that he has grown weaker. Meta screams a desperate warning, telling him to watch out as the beast closes in. Reassuring her, he prepares to cast his absorb magic. Joshua sidesteps the boar's charge and uses his magic to absorb its momentum. Immediately, he uses his skill to form crystalline rocks in his hand. Shouting, he smashes the projectile against the boar's armored head. He shouts that he's distracting it with sand-filled rocks and orders Meta to attack now. Meta acknowledges the order with a firm "Roger that" and dashes forward. Relief and excitement cross Joshua's face as their plan unfolds perfectly. Meta's silhouette arcs through the air, her weapon poised for the final blow. With a final heavy thud, the massive armored boar collapses to the ground. Meta pants heavily, staring at the fallen beast in disbelief that they defeated it. Kneeling beside the creature, Joshua calmly confirms it is dead. It was good that the boar was simpler than those in the Demon King's army, he remarks. Meta, weapon in hand, asks if he can see the power of the tools he made. Meta turns to Joshua, her face glowing with a warm, heartfelt smile. She praises the weapons he made as truly remarkable. The praise brings back a painful memory of Joshua being berated for his lousy weapons. Contrasting that with the present, he thinks back to the last time someone thanked him for his work. Coming back to reality, flustered Joshua admits he's glad to hear her praise. Feeling encouraged, he promises to make even more crossbows for the village. Meta is excited and eagerly requests additional tools. Ilya says thoughtfully that more weapons will let other clan members hunt. Joshua values these reactions to his creations. From his vantage point over the forest, he realizes this appreciation truly makes him happy. Later, villagers gather around a huge pile of slain boars, stunned by the hunt. Meta holds up a crossbow and credits Joshua entirely for their success. Villagers murmur in amazement, surprised that hunting with such a weapon is possible. Filled with gratitude, Ilya approaches Joshua, unsure how she could ever repay him. He offers to stay and make tools in return for food and shelter. Medic gives a slight approving nod as Ilya processes the surprising proposal. They announced a celebratory feast for that night. The village burst into joyful shouts. Morning comes and lights the village's quiet tents. Joshua wakes to birds chirping. Stretching, he murmurs about how well he slept. He opened his eyes and saw Ilya sleeping peacefully beside him in the same bed. A look of complete shock crosses his face at the unexpected situation. His mind races as he remembers she left after showing him the tent. A wriggle on his other side reveals another surprise. Maida is in bed too, clinging to him and talking defiantly in her sleep. Deeply baffled, Joshua tries to figure out how this strange situation came about. Ilya wakes up and cheerfully says good morning to him. Awkwardly, he asks why they are there, and Ilya explains they were keeping him warm. Meta mumbles in her sleep that she must not let him go, obeying Ilya's orders. Ilya scolds her for her strange sleep talking, but Meta blinks, confused. Awake now, Meta groggily says good morning to Joshua and Ilya. Overwhelmed, Joshua quickly thanks them for yesterday and slips away. Meta asks if he will hunt again, and he confirms he plans to do so. His first task is to make more weapons for the other demons. In the village square, a group of demons gathered, chattering openly. A huge, chaotic heap of freshly made weapons sits before them. The demons are amazed by the vast number of new weapons. Meta lifts a bow, remembering her grandfather's skill with bows. Her immense strength accidentally snaps the bow in two. Panicking, she keeps apologizing while Joshua tries to calm her. After the incident, Joshua realizes ordinary bows won't work against powerful demons. He notices Ilya standing in a perfect, natural archer's stance. As he approaches, he asks if she can use a bow. She shyly denies it, so he makes an arrow for her to try. Focused, Ilya inspects the arrow as she knocks it on the string. The arrow leaves her bow and streaks across the clearing with incredible speed. Joshua is stunned by how far the shot went and can hardly believe it's her first time. He tells her she might have a natural talent for archery, and she is delighted. He quickly makes a quiver of arrows for her to practice with. Ilya accepts the gift gratefully, her eyes bright with determination. Joshua turns to Meta and suggests she could use some armor. Telling her to stay still, he starts casting a wind spell. Air swirls around Meta while he measures her. Then he uses a craft spell to make a suit of lame armor. Intricate armor appears and snaps perfectly into place on Meta's body. Testing its sturdiness, she says boar horns cannot pierce it. Freshly equipped, the hunting party sets out, promising to return soon. After they leave, Joshua turns to Ilya and makes a new request. His question about whether there are any sturdy trees in the area leaves her puzzled. Her face shows a thoughtful expression as she considers his question. They step into a forest of massive iron teaks, which Ilya says are exceptionally tough. Joshua knows that cutting them down will take a long time. Ilya suggests they try something else, but he is determined. Ilya takes an axe herself before he can act, ready to try it out. Joshua watches, believing she'll need a long time to make a dent. A powerful swing sends the axe down, cracking the massive trunk. The whole tree falls as she proudly tells a shocked Joshua she has succeeded. The other demons cheer, amazed that she brought down the tree with a simple axe. Ilya credits Joshua for the amazing things he did for her. He notes Ilya is 10 times stronger than the other demons. Before them rises a massive, ever-growing pile of logs that forms an impressive hall. When transport comes up, Joshua assures everyone he can store them. A command to absorb makes the whole pile of logs disappear into thin air. Ilya admires his own power, but he shrugs off the compliment. When she asks what he'll make next, he says he'll build a secure fence. Blushing, Ilya admits she doesn't really know what fences are. Joshua says armored boars often enter the village at night. He says they need a fence to protect them from outside enemies. Ilya agrees to the plan and suggests they return to the village. Then he asked her to show him an elevated open area near the center. She knows exactly where to go and guides him back to the village. They reach a raised, empty plaza, and she confirms this is the spot. Joshua scans the empty space, wondering if anything was ever built there. Ilya replies with a distant look that nothing was built there. She says they used to hold festivals right there. Given the go-ahead, Joshua gets ready to make something right away. Suddenly, a massive wooden tower appears on the hill. Below, villagers are startled and point up at the sudden structure. Speechless, Ilya gapes at the tower's scale. Joshua casually says a structure this simple is no problem for him. At the top, Ilya marvels at the sweeping view of the whole village. Joshua notes they can see Meta and the others hunting below. He says the hunt seems to be going smoothly. He explains why spotting approaching monsters is a strategic advantage. He plans to station someone as a lookout to warn the village of danger. Then he outlines his plan to build matching towers on all four sides. Next, he will surround the village with a log fence reinforced with stone. Ilya says she is confident they will build a fine wall together. His plans are so vast, they leave his companions comically overwhelmed. Construction starts right away as massive wooden logs slam into place to form a wall. A thunderous boom rings out as a massive wooden log slams into place, starting the construction of a new wall. A tall wooden fence springs up instantly, closing completely around the village with a final heavy thud. Proudly, Joshua announces that the work is complete as Ilya and another demon tremble behind him in astonishment. Overwhelmed by his power, Ilya asks if he is a god and humbly admits she couldn't have done it alone. Joshua tells the celebrating villagers they have plenty of meat now and can sleep soundly at night. Skewers of fresh meat sizzle over a large fire pit, forming the centerpiece of the joyful feast. Villagers erupt in cheers and loudly thank Mr. Joshua for their great success in the boar hunt. Meta's face lights up with pure happiness as she marvels that the new sturdy fence feels like a dream. Ilya agrees with a calm, contented smile, her expression showing the same dreamlike feeling of safety. Joshua tells the group he needs to step away from the celebration briefly. Meta playfully tells Ilya it's her turn to take care of him, and Ilya gladly accepts. From a distance, Joshua watches Ilya walk away while a question forms in his mind about her. Meta praises his delicious cooking and asks if his parents taught him. He says his mother taught him a lot, and Meadow praises the grilled meat as perfect. Joshua humbly credits his parents and Ilya's predecessor for making it possible for him to be there with them. Meta grows somber and confirms the previous chief was a great man who fought orcs. She recalls a painful story from 10 years ago when orcs claimed their territory. Surprised, Joshua admits he was unaware the demons were also affected by the humans' war. Meta remembers naively inviting Ilya and other children to play on the southern plains. Fear flashes across her younger self's face as she remembers the terrible events that happened there. Her memory holds terrifying silhouettes of large orcs looming before the unsuspecting children. Meta says the orcs saw her people's horns as treasures to take. Their chief had bargained a truce, but she reveals the treacherous orcs broke their word. Orcs eyed Ilya's unusually long horn and tried to take it from her by force. Young, brave Ilya urges the other children to run back to the village for their safety. A sharp, violent sound cuts through the air, marking the start of the brutal orca attack. A second demon child bravely hits the orc who grabbed Meta, trying to protect his friend. An enraged, much larger orc violently slams the brave child into the ground. The orc looms over the fallen child, calls him a brat, and raises its weapon for another blow. A brutal blow hits the small demon, showing the orc's raw, overwhelming strength. Panting, young Ilya glares at the attackers and mutters that they've gone too far with their cruelty. An orc grabs Ilya's horn and declares she's done for as she lets out a pained grunt. The orc snaps Ilya's horn with a sickening crack, while another child looks on in horror. A young Meta screams Ilya's name, her face frozen in terror beside the violence. Amid the chaos, an orc's heavy spear pierces an adult demon through the chest. Medi's parents stand firm between the children and the advancing orcs, ready to defend them. Tearful, her mother urges young Meta to flee with Ilya while they hold the line. Medes ends her tale sadly, saying that when she looked back, only the severed heads of her parents remained. Joshua reassures her it was the orc's fault and that she did nothing wrong for inviting them to play. Meta clenches her fist, confirming that the late chief had told her the same thing. The chief then confronted the orcs alone and returned badly wounded, holding Ilya's recovered horn. She reveals the chief's dying words told Ilya to protect everyone in the village. Meta points to the center of the village and says that's where the chief is buried. Horrified, she sees the watchtower and suddenly realizes something has been built on it. Angry and trembling, she asks Joshua if he believes he has gone too far in desecrating the sacred site. Joshua says he built it only because Ilya told him it would please the gods and the late chief. He asks what Ilyo is doing, and Meta says Ilyo is probably practicing with her new bow. Ilya drawing her bow shows she now believes she can protect everyone. Joshua insists he meant every word when he said she had talent and thinks she may have a weapon crest. When he asks about her crest, Meta says it's called Hania, a name he has never heard. Meta explains Hania is not a combat crest, but a gentle crest with healing powers. Joshua reflects on this, and Meta agrees that Ilya is genuinely kind at heart. She explains Ilya is so kind, she often pushes herself too hard to help others. He now remembers her acting as a decoy for a child and sees how truly self-sacrificing she is. Meta says Ilya's actions are noble, as expected of their chief. Joshua's expression hardens as he says he doesn't want her to put herself in danger anymore. He promises to do his best to help her, which is deeply reassuring. Meta quiets the feasting villagers and prepares to make an important announcement. She makes a loud BM and announces she will marry Joshua, who chokes on his food in shock. As the crowd cheers, a stunned Joshua sputters in disbelief and asks what she means. Panicked, he believes they are trying to trap him in the village forever by tying him down with a family. A menacing aura forms behind him as he shivers at the idea of being forced into marriage. Ilya appears suddenly, shaking with anger, and scolds Meta for taking her declaration too far. Meta waves her arms energetically, insisting this is the best way to keep Joshua from ever leaving them. She challenges Ilya, asking if Ilya also wants Joshua to stay in the village forever. Push her to her breaking point as Ilya slams the table and declares she will be the one to marry him. Two women argue over who will be his husband, while Joshua insists he does not have to marry either. Clarifying, he says he only meant to stay a short time, sweating nervously as the commotion grew. The loud, escalating bickering overwhelms them, and Joshua looks frazzled and stressed. Sweat-soaked, he slips away from the chaotic scene, trying to go unnoticed. After escaping the argument, he decides he's had enough excitement and will go to sleep. The next morning, Joshua wakes groggy to the sound of birds chirping outside his window. Surprised, he finds Ilya and Meta asleep on either side of him, holding him tightly. Later that day, Ilya calls to Joshua from across the newly fortified village grounds. She approaches him cheerfully and asks about his plans for the day, catching him in the middle of a task. Joshua says thoughtfully that despite his efforts, the village still faces many problems to solve. Addressing Ilya and Meta, he says he needs iron to craft more essential tools for everyone. Determined, he says their goal today is to search for reddish-brown metallic rocks. Ilya says she sometimes sees small stones like that, but is not aware of any significant deposits nearby. She remembers the Astor cave at the foot of a mountain to the southwest. She warns him the house is now home to bats, and no one has gone near it in over a century. Ilya cheerfully offers to guide him there herself, her expression eager for the possible adventure. Meta interrupts quickly, firmly insisting she will guide him instead. Joshua realizes Meta's real motive is to keep their chief Ilya safe from danger. Glancing between them, he prepares to decide how to keep Ilya safe. Joshua believes the whole village would worry if something happened to their chief. Ilya reluctantly agrees, and a grateful Meta beams with joy, thanking her profusely for her trust. Joshua promises they will only do a quick inspection of the cave and be right back. Smiling with warmth and trust, Ilya tells them both to be careful on their journey. They reach the mouth of a store cave, a dark, ominous opening in the rock face. Meta stands before the foreboding entrance and gulps nervously, the cave's darkness unsettling her. Joshua steps forward to go in first to deal with the bats, but Meta calls out and stops him. He explains that bat bites can be dangerous and decides it's best to scout the cave first. Drawing on his craft ability, he instantly materializes a torch and hands it to a surprised Meta. He agrees to her plan to light a torch and toss it inside to see what might be lurking within. Meta agrees and says the light and heat will surprise any bats inside and drive them out. She hurls the burning torch deep into the cavern's oppressive darkness. A strange splash echoes, and Joshua immediately suggests they hide in the nearby bushes. Hidden, they hear splashing, sliding, and rustling, getting closer. Joshua peeks through the leaves and spots a large creature emerging as Meta gasps of terror rise beside him. Sweat beads on Meta's face as she stammers in terror. A massive, grotesque slime oozes from the cave, and she screams, asking what it is. Joshua instantly recognizes the creature as a dust slime, a dangerous mutant species. He describes its terrifying power to absorb and dissolve anything, including metal and rock. Proposing a tactical retreat to gather reinforcements, Joshua faces a firm no for Meta. Misreading his warning, Meta confidently says she can handle the monster herself. She rushes forward, ignoring Joshua's panicked warning that a weapon will be useless. Meta shouts defiantly and drives her spear into the slime's jelly-like body. The weapon sinks into the creature with a squelch, but has no effect. Joshua urgently yells for Meta to drop her spear immediately. She won't give up the precious weapon he made for her. The dust slime lunges forward at terrifying speed, trying to engulf the reckless warrior. Joshua reacts instantly, summoning a shimmering magical shield to block the attack. Slime hits the barrier hard, the impact sending a stunned Meta flying backward. Already moving to catch her, Joshua is preparing another crafting spell. He catches Meta and asks if she is all right as she apologizes for being reckless. Joshua looks back and realizes the dust slime prefers to attack moving targets. He briefly considers putting Meta down so he can fight the creature himself. A sudden, unexpected presence leaves him gasping in shock and confusion. Ilya stepped forward and stood calmly between them and the monstrous slime. A terrifying dust slime towers over Ilya, menacing and impossibly large. Ilya stays calm despite the sight, gripping a large axe with a look of deadly focus. With one powerful slash, she destroys the monster, scattering its remains. Joshua was stunned that she could instantly defeat the formidable dust slime. He marvels at her incredible power as she wields the ordinary axe he made yesterday. More villagers arrive, out of breath from the chase, astonished by Ilya's speed. Joshua starts apologizing to Ilya, but she calmly tells him not to worry. Turning to Meta, she gently admits she was trying to protect her. Ilya says firmly that protecting everyone is her life's purpose. Moved by her chief's deep, sincere words, Meta clenches her fist. Determined, she vows to become strong enough to protect Ilya and everyone else. Seeing how close they are, Joshua smiles and says he is counting on their strength. He notes that their deep love for each other causes them to worry too much. Smiling fondly, he thinks how much of a handful they are. Ilya lifts a finger, ready to give the humbled Meta a stern lecture. She scolds Meta for ignoring Joshua and risking his safety. Metadroop sincerely apologizes to Joshua for rashly underestimating the slime. Joshua tells the staggering Meta to rest her injured hip for the day. Reluctantly, Meta agrees, and Joshua confirms the matter is settled. He decides to gather the dust slime's remains for crafting materials. Joshua says the slime's jelly resists shock and can be used as armor. Among the remains, he finds a surprisingly large crystalline object. He identifies it as a magic stone, a substance monsters store in their bodies. Ilya says weapons and tools made from these stones gain special powers. Joshua points out its pale green color, which helps with wind magic. Now that the immediate danger has passed, the group stands at the safe cave entrance. Joshua concludes that because a dust slime lived there, no other animals remain inside. They peer in and find the cave full of docile, ordinary slimes. His theory is that one of those ordinary slimes must have mutated into the dust slime. A large slime hops curiously toward Joshua as he calls out to it. The slime hops away, appearing to lead them deeper into the dark cave. Then it starts bouncing happily with the other slimes in a strange, joyful display. Joshua thanked the slime and told the others it was helping them. Confident the Astor cave is now safe, the party moves into the darkness. Purple light starts to sparkle on the walls, and Ilya says it's what gives the cave its name. Joshua uses his magic to craft an ice axe to investigate the strange phenomenon. Striking the shimmering wall, he chips off a piece of the unusual rock. As he examines the fragment, his eyes widen when he sees it as violet iron. Excited, he explains to his puzzled companions that it is 3 times harder than ordinary iron. Joshua tells them the metal is rare and prized by nobles for its resistance to magic. He keeps his explanation simple and says it's a good metal for making superior weapons and armor. Making pickaxes for everyone, he rallies them to start mining the precious ore. The whole group gets to work chipping away at the valuable cave walls. The horned villager returns with a full sack, trailed by slimes carrying extra ore. Joshua smiles warmly at a flustered Ilya while holding a small folded paper. After a very successful expedition, the group announces their return to the village. A massive pile of shimmering violet iron is dumped onto the ground as the crowd cheers. Thrilled with the haul, Joshua says they won't have to worry about running out. Villagers eagerly discussed making new tools, pickaxes, and even cooking pots. A villager asks if Joshua can make weapons too, and Joshua replies confidently. A thoughtful expression crosses Joshua's face as he considers many new possibilities. The group chatters happily, their camaraderie clear as they plan for the future. Ilya steps up to Joshua, who is kneeling thoughtfully beside the impressive pile of ore. He turns, smiling, and calls her name as she calls his. He tells her she has perfect timing because he was just making something for her. He hands her a long sheathed sword, and she asks whether it is meant for her. She unsheathes a magnificent katana, revealing its brilliant, curved blade. Joshua says he consulted old village records on demon weapons for inspiration. In a flashback, he studies, believing she could use it the way her ancestors did. Ilya recognizes the weapon from the drawings, but wonders why he made it for her. He reminds her that she vowed to protect everyone after the dust slime incident. Moved, Ilya's eyes fill with tears as she thanks him and promises to cherish it. Joshua smiles warmly and tells her to let him know if she needs anything else made. Nearby, the meta flinches watch the private moment with jealous expressions. Inspired by Ilya's powerful new weapon, Meta loudly demands a katana of her own. Ilya wonders how they could ever repay Joshua for all his remarkable kindness. He modestly brushes off her thanks, saying they already give him food and shelter. His expression turned serious as he vowed to make their village safer and more prosperous. Ilya thanks him again, and he acknowledges her thanks with a determined nod. To do this, he says he must fix the village's 3 biggest problems. The first problem is safety, and he plans to rebuild all the houses using durable iron teak. Second, secure a steady food supply because hunting and gathering are unreliable. He concludes that starting farming is the best way to meet their food needs. The third and final problem is the village's overall sanitation. He explains the need to wash regularly to prevent illness and aid recovery. He plans to build a water supply in a quarry and later add washrooms and baths. Determined, he promises to make their village prosperous for the demons who appreciate his work. A wide view of the newly fortified village reveals the results of his work. A sharp howl rises from the nearby cliff, signaling a new threat. A sudden cry shocks the whole group, shattering their peaceful moment. Suddenly, a piercing cry in the distance startles Joshua and Ilya. Hearing the sound nearby, Joshua immediately turns and gives an order. He orders Meta to post the demons as guards and gather the archers. Joshua asks Ilya to join them, and she readily agrees. They race toward the northern watchtower, their feet pounding the ground. Meta rushes in, urgently reporting to Joshua and Ilya. He orders her to prepare for battle, but to hold their fire until he gives the signal. She confirms hearing the footsteps of dozens, possibly more than 100 people. Ilya watches with concern as the approaching group moves very quickly. From their vantage point, the group looks out toward the forest line. Ilya gasps, her eyes widening as she sees the figures clearly. Excited, she points to Joshua and says she can see them now. Shadowy wolf-like shapes emerge from the rustling trees below. Meta swallows hard, eyes fixed on the approaching crowd. A large, tired group of beast people trudges forward, some in wolf form. Shocked, Joshua says the exhausted refugees are werewolves. He remembers that werewolves are human-wolf hybrids hated by other people. Seeing their injuries, Joshua asks Ilya what might have happened to them. Ilya clenches her fist, grimly concluding they were attacked by slave hunters. A small, solitary white wolf stumbles out of the group of refugees. Ilya urgently calls out to Meta to order the archers to hold their fire. The small wolf looks up, its expression showing it wants to communicate. Ilya points out the familiar wolf to a surprised Joshua. He knows for sure it's the wolf he rescued from the slave hunters. The lead werewolf speaks, pleading only for safe passage and nothing else. Ilya and Joshua assure the others they do not intend to fight. The werewolf warns they are still in serious danger from their attackers. A sudden loud boom shakes the fortress wall and makes the wolf flinch. Ilya shouts for everyone to move into the village immediately for safety. Meta issues the order, instructing the guards to open the north gate. Exhausted, the group of werewolves stumbles through the open doorway. From the wall, the defenders watch refugees stream into their sanctuary. Joshua gives the final order to bring every last one of them inside. At that moment, an army of armored slave hunters arrives, ready to seize their prey. A soldier freezes, baffled by the unexpected fortress. Shocked, the army murmurs, trying to understand how a fortress appeared there. Joshua says he won't let them leave with the werewolf captives. He asks Meta whether her archers can aim only at the slave hunters. Ilya orders fire, warning her troops to aim carefully. Arrows rain down from the wall, hitting two surprised soldiers. A volley tears through the enemy ranks as more soldiers fall. A soldier shouts that they are human and only want the demihumans. Joshua shouts that they are demihumans too and demands the captive be released. For a moment he thinks he is not technically a demihuman. The slave hunters break into confused chatter as they realize their grave mistake. Their furious leader commands a retreat, using the werewolves as shields. Angry, Meta clenches her fist and calls the slave hunters cowards. Joshua orders Ilya to encircle and intercept the retreating enemy force. Fiercely determined, Ilya leaps from the wall to intercept them. The fleeing soldiers raise the alarm at her sudden approach. A mask of concentration covers her face as she closes the distance. Ilya blurs forward, cutting through the enemy ranks. The soldier staggers back, shocked by the power of her attack. A soldier grabs a girl with cat ears and demands to know who attacked him. Ilya offers to spare their lives if they free their captives. The soldier presents the girl and asks whether this is what she wants. Demanding the hostage, she is told to stop by an unseen voice. A soldier presses a blade to a girl's throat, threatening her. She freezes in terror when the soldier threatens to hurt her. Ilya's expression hardens into cold, silent, utter fury. She delivers a powerful slash that strikes the soldier holding the girl. Another soldier curses as the freed girl staggers away, stunned. Ilya finishes her attack, long hair whipping around her. Someone's voice calls her name and says that's enough, freezing her mid-attack. Joshua warns her it's too dangerous to chase them any further. Surprised, Ilya turns to him as cheers rise. Freed beast people celebrate their liberation with joyful cries. Admiring her, Joshua acknowledges her impressive victory. Meta takes charge and orders the wounded to be bandaged. She also orders the recovered human equipment be gathered together. Joshua bows deeply and formally, expressing his sincere gratitude. Merc, a small white wolf and the chief's daughter, introduces herself. Ilya introduces herself warmly as the village chief. Merc looks up at her, taken aback by the revelation. Joshua pauses, taken aback, as Merc bows and says her name. Ilya crouches and tells Merc there's no need for such formality. Mark looks up, accepts her friendly gesture, and repeats her name. Ilya asks whether the people of Merc came from the northern mountains. Merc recalls living peacefully in a cave until humans arrived. Joshua links this to the slave hunters they fought. She warns there are probably many more enemies, including some who used fire. Merc says they could shoot large flames from their hands. Joshua sees they're up against fire mages and must build stone walls. Then he remembers that he and Merc met before. Joshua confirms she was the one captured by the slave hunters. Meta glares accused him of leading the slave hunters to them. Ilya replies with a firm no, defending Joshua against the accusation. Merc says she simply followed Joshua's, sent to find a village. Joshua admits he had hoped Ilya and her people would save them. The werewolves said they regretted not asking for help sooner. Ilya's group receives a direct play for assistance. Turning to Merc, she insists they help one another in times of need. Meta pauses and looks down with a reluctant expression. She looks up and asks Ilya what she wants from them. Ilya asks to be allowed to stay and promises to fight alongside them. Fixing a hard stare on Meta, she insists on her agreement. Joshua says the slave hunters are also targeting demons. Ilya's sighs in relief, with Meta finally conceding the point. Meta accepts the alliance, arguing that the enemy of an enemy is a friend. Meta starts organizing, plans to send everyone home and prepare for new guests. Merc the white wolf looks up, sharing concern for everyone's well-being. Wounded, Ilya thanks Merc warmly and tells her to rest too. Later that night, a campfire crackles while the village settles into a quiet watch. Curled on the ground, Merc sleeps deeply after the exhausting battle. Watching her, Joshua tells Ilya she must be tired and is still just a child. Ilya urges Joshua to rest, but Joshua wants to inspect the captured armor first. A horned demon arrives, saying cheerfully that all the recovered gear is by the gate. A heavy thud sounds as a massive pile of armor and weapons hits the ground. A strange clacking sound catches Joshua's attention as he inspects the pile. A distinctive seal on the armor marks it as property of the Cortesha Company. Joshua remembers the company's notorious record of illegal trade and assassinations. Meta's expression turns grim, noting that a fire mage from that company will be formidable. Joshua agrees and sees they must quickly reinforce their defenses against a skilled magic user. He vows to stop the slave hunters to prevent future tragedies. The next morning, Joshua wakes to a gentle, pleasant feeling. Half asleep, he ends up petting something soft and fluffy on his stomach. Opening his eyes, he studies the fluffy shape in his bed. Shocked, he finds a girl with animal ears sleeping peacefully on him. She stirs, blinks, and wonders who he is. Yawning softly, she wishes Joshua good morning against a backdrop of flowers. Joshua stammers, is completely flustered and trying to make sense of the situation. He recognizes the voice as Merx's, and she confirms her identity with a puppy's help. Merx shyly confirms she knows his name. Pointing to the woman still asleep in the bed, she says Ilya told her. Meta and Ilya wake up too, greeting Joshua in the crowded bed. Now the group stands in the quiet village courtyard, prepared for the day's work. Joshua remembers the report about the fire mages, a vision of blazing destruction in his mind. It becomes clear the current log fence won't withstand powerful fire attacks. Determined, he sets out to gather fire-resistant building materials and calls to Merc. He asks Merc whether she knows of any bare, rocky ground nearby. Merc wonders if he means a rugged place like her old mountain home. Ilya speaks up and points to a spot across the river to the east. Joshua looks at the wide, dangerous river, thinking how they will cross. Meta eagerly offers a piggyback ride, and he nervously declines. He decides they should scout the river for monsters before crossing. Merc readily agrees to be their guide on the scouting mission. Ilya decides to go too and warns about the big boars along the way. Meta joints did the same, figuring more people are better in unfamiliar territory. A sudden idea hits Joshua. He decides to craft a suit of armor for Ilya. They walk along the top of their imposing wooden fortress wall. Ilya and Meta walk together, chatting happily while Joshua follows close behind. Merc immediately agrees when Joshua asks her for a favor. Holding up a piece of clay, he asks her to find where it is buried. Merc takes the lead, confident there should be some nearby. She points to a spot as Joshua conjures a shovel and starts digging. He quickly finds a large deposit, and Ilya is surprised by how easily they found it. Ilya and Merc want to know how the useful material can be used. Joshua describes how he crafts, shaping the clay and then heating and cooling it. With a soft poof, he instantly conjures an ornate ceramic mug. He offers the sturdy, intricate mug to an impressed Merc. This clay can also be used to make tiles and bricks, he explains. After thanking Ilya, he decides to have the villagers dig up more clay later. With their first task complete, he says it's time to cross the river. Standing at the edge of the wide, rushing river, the group considers how to cross. Ilya points out how wide the river is, and Joshua agrees. A bright idea comes to him, and he cheerfully declares they will build a bridge. A wooden bridge appears over the water in an instant, startling Ilya and Meta. Joshua walks across calmly, explaining this will keep them from being swept away. Curious, he asks Merc how she managed to cross the river earlier. Merc says there is a narrow spot upstream where she hopped across some rocks. Meta and Ilya relax in the gentle breeze and the soothing sound of the river. On the other side, Merc sniffs the air and smells the mountains to the north. With his back to the river, Joshua's expression grows serious. Worried about the trauma the werewolves suffered, he wishes he could heal them. Meta warns of their immediate danger, snapping him back to the present. He pulls on his glove and refocuses on the main goal of collecting rocks. The group moves into rocky mountain terrain to start their search. They cross a barren landscape, scattered with stones of every size. Merc confirms this is the location they were seeking. They step into a wide, desolate quarry strewn with rolling boulders and rubble. Joshua notices clear signs of earlier quarrying, including cut marks on the rocks. After he asks Merc if she saw only boars here, she confirms that she did. Ilya says she usually avoids this place because of the large, powerful monsters. Meta notes that so far they've only seen small animals like rabbits. Joshua readies his magic to start mining the rocks. He tells curious Ilya he's using special drilling magic. A loud crack echoes through the deserted quarry. A violent rumble starts under Ilya's feet, making them flinch. A violent shock ripples through the area, knocking Ilya and Meta off balance. They watch the alarm as the scattered rocks start to move and come together. Horror dawns on Joshua as the rocks start to take shape. A massive stone figure forms before them, and he says it's a golem. Frozen in shock, his face becomes a mask as the colossal golem looms over them. Before he can react, Ilya rushes forward without thinking to attack the creature. Joshua shouts for her to wait, but his desperate warning comes too late. Ilya grits her teeth and charges, recognizing how tough the creature is. Her powerful slash strikes the golem's leg, making it stagger. Her strike staggers the creature, but she knows the fight is far from over. Even after her strike knocks the golem's head off, she stays tense and focused. Her eyes go wide in disbelief as she watches the golem's injured leg. Shattered rocks from its leg magically fly back into place and reform the limb. Stepping back, Ilya apologizes for acting rashly and admits the slashing is useless. Joshua points to a reddish-black stone that sparkles at the center of the golem's chest. This is the core, he explains, and if it is not destroyed, the golem will keep performing. The golem strikes back and starts throwing huge boulders at the small group. Joshua orders everyone to run as deadly projectiles rain down. Quickly, he makes a plan and shouts to Ilya and Meta to destroy the exposed core. Both girls exchange a determined look, aware of the crucial role they must play. Nodding together, they draw their weapons, ready to carry out the new plan. Joshua tells Merc to focus only on dodging and reassures her not to worry. Joshua cries out with determination and charges straight at the massive rampaging stone golem. Ilya shouts urgently that his head-on approach is far too dangerous. With a confident smile, he turns to Ilya and reassures him that he is the perfect man for the job. The massive golem draws back its stone fist, ready to smash the young man. Joshua weaves through a barrage of heavy punches that slam into the ground around him. Placing a hand on the creature's arm, he narrows his eyes and issues the single command absorb. His magic takes effect instantly, and the golem's arm fades away in soft puffs. The golem reels back in shock as its whole body starts to dissolve under the strange magical attack. Joshua discovers his ability works because the golem's body is made of inorganic rock. Confused, the golem stumbles back as its lower half dissolves into particles of light. The creature struggles to regenerate, gathering loose rocks to replace its disintegrating arm. Joshua's face lights with a determined grin as he realizes he's absorbing the rocks faster. Overwhelmed, the golem's entire form rapidly dematerializes under the relentless attack. Seizing the opportunity, Joshua shouts to his two companions to start their attack now. Meta, a girl with horns, leaps into the air and says her metal rod can break anything. Bringing her weapon down with a heavy thud, she smashes it directly against the golem's chest. Once Meta's strike lands, she calls Ilya to follow with an attack of her own. With a ferocious battle cry, Ilya channels all her immense strength into her sword. With a powerful slash, she brings her blade down and strikes the golem's exposed glowing core. At the golem's center, the reddish-black puppet stone shatters with a sharp plink. Joshua is surprised as he manages to catch the falling pieces of the shattered core. Ilya rushes over to check if he's hurt, then warmly praises their teamwork. He explains that although their victory was impressive, he was referring to the core he had just caught. He holds the shimmering, broken crystal and recognizes it as the golem's core. Joshua says these puppet stones are fragile and usually crumble once a golem is defeated. Meta sees the stone split exactly down the middle, so they can still use it. Ilya's eyes light up when she realizes they can make two rock puppets of their own. She worries they might attack, but Joshua explains that puppets obey whoever's name is on the stone. Even used stones can have their commands overwritten, he adds. Ilya says she's surprised but glad they could help, while Joshua praises their great effort. Keen to test their price, Joshua decides to craft a new golem right away. Dazed, Ilya stammers that he can even create living things, which he finds remarkable. He gives his new golem its first command to cut a large cube-shaped rock. The ground shakes under the golem's steps, startling Meta, Ilya, and their small companion. They stand in awe as the golem easily lifts a huge, jagged boulder. Meta clenches her fist and mutters, determined she won't lose and that she can lift that much too. The golem holds the rock casually in one hand, waiting for its next instruction. Defeated, Meta admits even she couldn't lift it with one arm. Joshua studies his creation, satisfied and a little sweaty. He concludes they now have a dependable new partner for their village. Back in the village, a hornblower rushes through the gates, warning of trouble. Panic spreads through the villagers as they point at the approaching giant, fearing an enemy attack. Joshua and Ilya watch their golem take a heavy, ground-shaking step into view. Meta steps forward with a reassuring gesture and tells everyone to relax and stay calm. Her face lights up with childlike excitement as she announces the creature is a golem. She proudly says the huge golem is their new friend, made by Mr. Joshua. Ilya asks Joshua what he plans to do with all the rocks they've collected. Pointing to the golem at work, he says he plans to build a wall for the village. He says their first priority will be to reinforce the vulnerable north gate. Sheer comical astonishment crosses Meta and Ilya's faces as they take in what appears next. They look up in shock at a magnificent, fully formed stone gate that has appeared suddenly. Ilya gapes confirms this is the biggest thing he has ever made and acknowledges that fact. Joshua suggests they start by checking how sturdy the new structure is. A villager steps forward and shakes one of the massive doors with all his strength. Meadow worries his strength will make the entire gate collapse under the string. Exhausted, the man gives up as Ilya says construction will now move quickly. Joshua becomes serious and insists the walls be rebuilt quickly with stone. A broad view of the village wall reveals the scale of their ambitious project. Tirelessly, the golem lifts and stacks the heavy stone blocks to build the new wall. Joshua lifts his hand as his magic generates a steady supply of new construction materials. Villagers from every race work together, carrying materials and securing the rising wall. Meta and the other demons watch the harmonious work with bright, encouraging smiles. Our entire community has mobilized and is working together with remarkable speed and efficiency. Joshua watches the progress with quiet satisfaction, his companions tired but content. A soft, pleased smile spreads across his face as he watches his friends and the villagers work. Atop the rising wall, he watches the progress of their massive undertaking. Joshua estimates that at the current pace, the north wall will be finished by tomorrow. Excitement fills his mind when he realizes there are endless ways to improve their home. Meta calls his name, interrupting his train of thought and drawing his attention. She asks him whether he has seen their companion Merc. Meta glances around and admits she hasn't seen the werewolf girl since that morning. Joshua remembers that Meta initially disliked the werewolves and later changed her mind. He realizes her concern shows she has begun to care for them. Determined to act, Joshua says he will go find her himself. Meta asks him to start cooking and trusts him to search for their friend. Joshua scans the village and starts searching for their missing companion. A small sound of recognition escapes him when he spots someone he knows. He spots Ilya, and she turns with a gentle smile when he calls her name. He asks if Merc is with her, and Ilya says she hasn't seen her either. Ilya looks worried while Joshua suggests Merc may be out hunting somewhere. They agree the best move is to ask the nearby werewolves for information. Joshua steps up to one of the werewolves and politely asks if he has seen Merc. The werewolf tells them he saw her by the southern river carrying a basket of mushrooms. Joshua says he will go find her, and Ilya tries to stop him. A large werewolf steps forward, insisting it cannot trouble Joshua and Ilya any further. Merc gathered mushrooms as a thank you gift for the demons, he explains. Ilya quickly insists there's no need to thank them for their help and kindness. The werewolf earnestly asks them to rely more on his people. Ilya tightens her fist, fearing the werewolves could die during the search. The werewolf meets her gaze and senses her deep concern for his people's safety. Joshua accepts their offer and agrees to let them handle the search for Merc. With the werewolves gone, Joshua confirms the location is the southern river. As sunset nears, he fears Merc may have been swept away and urges them to hurry. They run through the woods toward the river to find their friend. Ilya hopes Merc is safe, and Joshua agrees, saying she is fast enough to escape danger. A thought crosses Ilya's mind as she walks slowly, and she wonders about it. Joshua asks why Merc would go so far out of her way. Turning to Ilya, he calls her name and asks for her input on the matter. She looks at him with understanding and says she knows exactly how Merc feels. Joshua remembers his painful past when he was cast out as a useless child after his hometown burned. In a flashback, a young, dirty Joshua is forced out of town by an angry woman. He remembers being called useless, while Ilya cannot believe anyone would cast him out. Another memory shows Joshua studying hard and explains why he learned swordsmanship and magic. Ilya ties this to Merc's behavior, saying the werewolf is just as desperate for their approval. Her concern is that Merc fears being pushed out if she doesn't contribute enough. Joshua calmly agrees with her, admitting that some demons would act that way. Pointing to the werewolves working hard, he notes their clear efforts to contribute. Now determined, Ilya tells Merc she wants to talk more to reassure her. Joshua smiles warmly, agrees, and suggests they hurry back to talk and eat together. Moving through the woods, they call out Merc's name while searching for her. As they approach a river, they keep calling for Merc, asking her to say if she is there. Suddenly, Ilya spots something and points urgently at the river, getting Joshua's attention. They find Merc sitting alone on a large rock amid the rushing water. Joshua and Ilya immediately start hopping across the rocks to reach the stranded girl. Joshua realizes the rising water has trapped Merc and she cannot get back. Merc looks up, startled to see Joshua and Ilya hopping across the treacherous rocks toward her. Alarm and confusion cross her face as she asks why they are there, and a rumble starts. When Joshua calls her name, the ground starts to shake and he flinches. After the danger passes, Ilya's face twitches with anger and she says she will scold Merc. She angrily tells Merc never to go into dangerous places alone again. Joshua steps in, gently rests a hand on Merc, and explains the place is safe. He tells her not to make anyone worry, since they are all friends in the same village. Humbled, Merc bows her head and vows to be careful and not trouble them again. Looking down, Merc still feels unsure of her place among them. Ilya tries to reassure her that the werewolves were a big help in finding the clay. Merc downplays her contribution, saying she only has a good sense of smell. Ilya passionately insists that werewolves have valuable qualities demons lack. She believes working together will help them all live happier lives despite outside pressures. A werewolf and a horned demi-human agree their combined strength can stop that oppression. With a proud smile, Joshua watches, thinking Ilya has the right idea. From behind, Merc quietly agrees with Ilya's assessment. With new hope, she looks up and says they can live better by helping each other. Joshua extends his hand and says he's counting on them, and Merc agrees firmly. Now that their bond is stronger, Joshua says it's time to head home after Meta's cooking. Merc proudly displays a basket of mushrooms and identifies them as magical metashrooms. An illustration shows metashrooms can serve as both food and medicine. Joshua pats Merc's head, praises her for a job well done, and her tail wags happily. As the day ends, they return to their sprawling traditional village home. Inside, a large pot of meat and lemon stew bubbles on the stove. Meta stares fixes a comically intense stare, pouring all her focus into her cooking. Joshua and Ilya inhale the fragrant steam and note how good it smells. Merc looks skeptically at the pot and doubts Meta can cook with such strange ingredients. Joshua chuckles, admits to himself that Meta can be a bit clumsy. A beautifully prepared bowl of soup suggests his worries are unfounded. As the village gathers to eat, Joshua is confident the food will be fine. Taking a cautious bite of the soup, Ilya's eyes widen in pleasant surprise. Meta is equally impressed, saying she has really outdone herself this time. Merc, the most skeptical, takes a spoonful of the stew. Eyes widen in surprised delight as she says it tastes amazing. Meta brags smugly about her cooking, and Merc says it's unlike anything she's ever had. Meta asks Merc to taste the mushrooms she gathered, which are also in the stew. Merc is amazed again, noting the mushroom's juicy texture, while Meta is thrilled. Joshua watches with a warm smile, noting the mushrooms were a clear success. A peaceful dinner is interrupted when Meta hears a noise outside and tries to figure out where it came from. A young man with a horn points frantically at the rooftop, his face filled with alarm. A small winged figure lands heavily, and Meta demands to know who is there. At first, she assumes the intruder must be after their meat, then dismisses the thought. Perched on the roof, the owl-like girl lets out a low growl. Swooping down, she gets uncomfortably close to Meta, making her blush with confusion. Meta swoops down from above and asks what the intruder wants. The owl girl stares intently at the fluffy pom-pom on Meta's hair accessory. Joshua warns as an object is thrown, knocking the girl off balance. He shouts, throws an object, and moves quickly to intervene in the strange standoff. Wiz, the slime creature, cushions the girl's fall and catches her with a soft squish. Joshua praises Wiz for its excellent work, while he and another girl rush to the scene. Ilya sees the intruder has passed out and her wings are tattered. Joshua and Merc peer down at the small figure with concern, trying to identify her. Watching her lie unconscious, Joshua wonders if this injured, mysterious girl is a demi. The whole group stands over the fallen girl, her identity unknown. Cradled in the soft body of the slime creature Wiz, the girl lies unconscious. The group gathers around the unconscious girl, still cushioned by the slime. Stirring with a groan, she moves and Joshua gently tells her not to speak. He quickly asks Ilya to get a bed ready for the injured girl, and she agrees. Meta gently hands the weakened girl a bowl of soup and says it will warm her. The girl downs the soup in one gulp, then falls back into unconsciousness. Joshua reassures the worried Meta that the girl is only asleep right now. Meadow relaxes but remains puzzled by the mysterious girl. Sleeping peacefully, her small body rests in the soft embrace of the slime. Meta suddenly realizes the girl is a Tengu. She tells a surprised Joshua that Tengu live on a small mountain to the west. Joshua is surprised because he's never heard of a demi living so close. Ilya comes back to say the bed is ready, and Joshua thanks her. He decides to use healing magic on her scratches before they move her. Merc watches closely as Joshua casts the healing spell. Tucked safely into bed, the Tengu girl sleeps soundly under a warm blanket. Joshua asks his slime companion, Wiz, to watch over the sleeping girl for a while. Nearby villagers chatter nervously as they peer at the new arrival. Meta claps her hands and cheerfully tells everyone to return to their meal. Meta believes Joshua is amazing and can handle any situation. Merc remembers her mother, saying it's amazing to use more than one kind of magic. Joshua humbly says he is only using simple, common healing magic. Meta reveals she also knows some magic and can sense it in animals. Surprised, Joshua asks whether she knows any magic, and Merc proudly says she uses wind magic. Puzzled, Ilya watches as Joshua stands with a new idea. The camera shows the village wall as the conversation continues. Merc demonstrates her wind magic, summoning a small gust between her hands. The gust is only strong enough to make small ripples on the water's surface. She admits her power is only useful for play, not for fighting. Merc then reveals she has the white wolf crest, useful for ice and healing. Joshua thinks this crest could let her use both ice and healing magic. Merc says her mother could only teach her wind magic. Surprised, Joshua asks if she would like him to teach her more spells. Reassuring the excited Merc, he says simple magic will be easy for her. In their first lesson, Joshua asks her to imagine freezing a bucket of water. Merc, thinking a wand would help, clumsily tries to make one on the spot. Focusing her energy, she says the command to freeze her intended target. A surge of magic bursts from the bucket as its contents turn to ice. With the frozen bucket in her hands, she trembles as her companions praise her great success. Joshua encourages her, saying more training will improve her cooling abilities. Merc and Ilya eagerly agree to practice their magic even more. Merc suggests they use her new ice magic to help build the new facilities. The next morning opens under a calm sky, promising a new day's work. Inside, the rescued Tengu girl sleeps peacefully, recovering from her ordeal. Joshua and Merc head outside, leaving the sleeping girl behind. Starting on a large panel on the ground, he tries to make sense of a strange Merc. Joshua says he had the demons dig a large hole for him. They go down a stone-lined staircase, secured by a sturdy violet iron door. A strong push opens the door, revealing the space inside. Awe hits Merc as he realizes he has created a vast, empty underground room. For practice, Joshua asks whether she can freeze the room's floor and walls. This will be cold storage for meat and fish to prevent spoilage, he explains. Joshua admits freezing such a large space is hard for him. His own skills are almost entirely focused on crafting magic, he clarifies. Merc stares at him, finding his specialization odd, as he encourages her to practice. Her ear twitches as she senses a disturbance outside. Joshua says he will go to work on the walls and prepares to leave. Merc stops him and says the Tengu girl is causing a commotion outside. From a distance, they watch the scene unfold in the village courtyard. Spotting the girl, Joshua and Merc rush toward the source of the trouble. They watch Ilya and Meta try to gently restrain the agitated Tengu girl. Ilya urges her to rest, but she insists she feels fine. The Tengu girl thanks them for their help, then falls silent, unable to explain. Ilya warns that with her tattered wings, she would only fall again. Seeing her wings droop in defeat, Joshua approaches to introduce himself and the others. The group waits while the Tengu girl stays silent with her head bowed. He asked directly whether any rule prevents her from interacting with them. A winged girl shyly says she is a Saw and a member of the Tengu. Ilya warmly introduces herself as the village chief as Merc peeks out. Joshua speaks to Asawa to understand what is happening with her wings. He reveals the unfortunate truth that she cannot fly with them. Joshua adopts a serious expression and begins to work out a solution to her problem. With earnest determination, he vows to build a tool to help her. The three girls are left stunned and speechless by his sudden, confident proclamation. Ilya asks if he can make wings and then says he cannot. He says he'll use magic stones for the task. With a poof, he conjures an ornate wand to show his skill. Then he asks Asuha if she can use any kind of magic. Joshua asks her to imagine creating wind, while Merc demonstrates helpfully. Focused, Asuha whispers the incantation for a wind spell. A small gust of wind swirls around her, showing she has a knack for it. Holding the newly crafted wand, he explains it will help her fly. Merc and Asuha examined the sparkling wand and noticed its unique greenstone. Joshua explains the stone boosts wind magic and remembers their fight with a dust slime. He explains the concept simply, saying it will let her achieve clear winds. Asked if she can fly with it, Asuha grips the wand and decides to try. Pointing her wand, she gathers her magic and casts a powerful wind spell. Suddenly, a massive gust erupts, striking her companions with unexpected force. A sudden, powerful gust lifts Asuha off the ground and sends her tumbling into the air. Her friends look up, eyes wide with amazement as she floats above them. Filled with pure delight, Joshua says that she is flying as he watches her rise. Watching Suha twirl in the sky, Ilya admires the stone's usefulness. Agreeing, he credits the magic stone for its power. Joshua also praises Asua's strong talent with wind magic. A few moments later, she comes down and lands gently in front of the group. Overwhelmed, she tries to give the amazing item back, but he insists she keep it. He says it will perfectly compensate for her wings and suit her. Noticing her hesitation, he suggests a different way to repay. Her people, the Tengu, might offer their cooperation, he suggests. Joshua says hostile humans have been attacking the demis nearby. He suggests the flying Tengu could gather useful information for them. Asuha suddenly realizes this is a service her people could offer. Ilya advises that she discuss the proposal with her tribe first. Asuha agrees and promises her people will do what they can to help. Ilya, with a serious expression, asks her solemnly to be careful. She warns her to watch out for bad people, and Suha nods in understanding. Asuha promises to come back and repay them, and they tell her she is always welcome. They watch her soar into the distance as she heads home. Merc notes that Joshua and Ilya are kind, perhaps too kind. Meadow appears and agrees with Merc's view of their leader's character. She notes that their kindness is exactly what she likes about them. Meta suddenly reminds Ilya about a favor she wanted to ask Joshua. Ilya shyly blushes deeply and asks if he could make her a flute. Agreeing cheerfully, he asks her to describe the instrument she remembers. In an instant, he makes the exact flute she described, leaving them stunned. Thrilled, Ilya thanks him warmly and promises to practice playing it. Meta eagerly urges her to try playing it for them right away. Ilya lifts the new flute to her lips, ready to play a melody. Joshua smiles, expecting a beautiful sound that shows her warm personality. A deafening high-pitched screech blasts through the air, shocking everyone. Shouting her name in alarm, he covers his ears against the sonic assault. His plea for her to stop can hardly be heard over the deafening noise. The group is left tattered and dazed, and Meadow wonders whether it was an enemy. Determined, Ilya vows to practice the flute diligently, while Merc begs her not to. Joshua thinks the noise might intimidate enemies. Ilya keeps trying to recruit a reluctant Meta to practice with her. Joshua looks up at the sky and notes how far Asuha has already flown. He remembers her hopeful smile and feels sure she will get home safely. A grim account says she returned the next day. Pride lights Joshua's face as he looks over their recent progress. Admiring their newly fortified walls, he credits his golems and slimes. A voice calls out to Joshua, and he turns with a startled expression. Merc rushes in, urgently reporting a plume of smoke rising from the northern mountains. Far off, a dark column of smoke twists into the sky, looking ominous. Standing on the village wall, Merc points to the smoke and identifies it as the Tengu settlement. Fear floods her face as she wonders if they suffered the same attack as her people. Suddenly, a hand grips Merc's shoulder, pulling her out of her worried thoughts. Ilyo appears with a firm expression and announces she will prepare to take in refugees. Joshua gives her the task and nods to show he trusts she's ready. Shock crosses his face as he sees something coming toward him. Awiri Isuha flies shakily while carrying two injured Tengu companions. Beneath her, a large, panicked crowd of her people flees in utter disarray. Refugees, many of them children and elders, looked ragged and terrified. Horrified, Joshua realizes they were attacked by slave hunters. Desperate Tengu refugees begin arriving at the village, looking for safety. Hurrying to meet them, Joshua assures the most exhausted Saha that they will take everyone in. Asuha collapses in tears, revealing that their entire village was burned to the ground. The other Tengu spot Joshua and start whimpering in fear of the human. One of the refugees lets out a raw, terrified cry. He shouts that a human is here and will kill them all. Panic erupts as the terrified Tengu urge everyone to flee. Ilya steps quickly in front of Joshua and shouts that he will not harm them. A refugee asks why Asuha would lead them to a place with humans. Amid escalating panic, Asuha pleads urgently for everyone to stop. Tearful, she insists Joshua and Ilya are different and that they saved her life. The Tengu fall silent, realizing they were truly welcomed. Ilya gently comforts one of the refugees and apologizes for their suffering. Moved by deep empathy, she invites them inside for food and rest. Merc steps forward to treat the injured, and Ilya offers them a place to sleep. Inside, villagers start caring for the exhausted and wounded Tengu. A Tengu man says grimly that only a third of his people escaped. He says the others were either taken by the attackers or burned alive. Asuha clenches her fist, confirming that a giant flame-throwing human was responsible. Joshua thinks this could be the same fire mage who attacked Merc's village. Asuha remembers how the mage's power turned their forest to ash in an instant. Joshua concludes that an immense flame like that can only be the work of a high-level mage. He asked whether the attacker used any other magic, but Asuha confirms it was only fire. She details his purple outfit and his arrogant claim to be the fire god's child. Joshua repeats the title quietly to himself, a dawning look of recognition crossing his face. WIS links the description to an honor student in the Log family. Joshua asks for any other details, and Asuha recounts what happened the day before. Scanning the western sky, she searched for her friends who had gone missing. In a forest clearing, she came across what looked like a town for humans. She crept closer to the settlement to get a better look at the strange place. Horrified, she watched her friends, demons and werewolves, forced to work. Shocked, Joshua and Ilya discover that other demis were enslaved nearby. Suha explains that this is why she asked her father to form an alliance with them. Her father's request for time to think proved fatal that day. Tearfully, she reveals that the same humans murdered her father. Joshua listens to the tragic story, his face somber and showing understanding. He concludes the town is a secret base for illegal slave hunters. They realize their village is now in grave danger from the slavers. They note grimly that they must act quickly to avoid heavy casualties. Joshua calls for Ilya and Isuha by name, gathering his core allies. He calls Meta Merc and whiz in for the important discussion. Wearing a serious expression, he says they all need to talk. Key village leaders gather for a council of war. Joshua warns that the slave hunters might attack them. He asks their advice on how to respond if the slavers arrive. Ilya answers clearly and firmly, they will fight them. The villagers made it clear they would not allow anyone to be taken away. Ilya vows never to give up, even if it means fighting other humans. She stands resolute, regardless of their enemy's race. Impressed by their unity, Joshua offers a suggestion. Ilya listens, worry on her face as she weighs the odds against them. Joshua proposes a bold plan for them to make the first move. Both Meta and Ilya are taken aback by his aggressive plan. Meta immediately springs into action, eager to strike back at its enemies. Joshua tones down her enthusiasm and warns that a direct assault would be too dangerous. He makes it clear that their main goal is to rescue the captive demis at the base. Merc figures out they will lure the enemy out and then break in. Joshua confirms the plan to lure them out, take them down, and then attack the base. Turning to his slime companion Wiz, he begins the necessary preparations. He instructs the golem's expert to dig up a large amount of coal from the mines. The golems promptly march off to carry out their new duty without hesitation. Joshua says the coal is a flammable stone they will use in a trap. Next, he turns to Merc and assigns her a crucial role. Merc nods eagerly and says everyone wants to help and she'll do anything. Joshua thanks her and asks her to draw the slave hunters out of their base. He tells her to guide them toward the northern wall and keep a safe distance. He asks Asaha to lead Merc and the others to the enemy base. This dangerous work is needed to set their trap, he explains. Suhara nods firmly and tells him to leave everything to them. Merc nods in agreement, her expression equally resolute and ready. Joshua then makes one final request of Asuha. He tells her there's another important job waiting for her when she returns. He asks her to blow from the top of the wall and says he'll explain later. As Suha and the werewolves leave, Joshua waves while watching them go. All eyes turn to Joshua as they wait for his next command. He asks rhetorically whether he is now the one giving the orders. After confirming, he surprises everyone by saying he will be the decoy. Ilya and Meta are stunned by his sudden decision. Ilya objects at once, insisting she should be the decoy instead. Joshua firmly overrules her and says he has a hunch and needs to be up front. He orders Ilya to wait at the gate and charge on his signal. She hesitantly agrees, and he thanks her with a reassuring smile. Meta is then given the key task of commanding the defenders. Nervous, Meta accepts and vows to memorize the order of instructions. Joshua tells them to ready weapons on top of the tower, which confuses the girls. He explains that arms is a term for large weapons used in warfare. To show his power, he uses magic to instantly create a massive ballista. Joshua stands on the village ramparts and explains his newly crafted ballista, a giant crossbow. Meta eagerly assumes she just needs to fire it, but he refuses outright. With a serious look, he makes clear it is a weapon of last resort. A stone golem stomps in, heavy steps shaking the ground as it carries coal. Joshua thanks his familiar Wiz warmly for the prompt delivery. He explains their plan to make flammable sacks from ground coal and boar fat. Afterwards, he orders Meta to attack the area with flaming arrows and crossbows. Joshua tells his companions to get ready for battle before the scouts return. Dark clouds gather, setting a grim tone for the coming conflict. In a clearing, a young demon and Joshua confirm that the hay is placed correctly. Tension and focus show on his face as he oversees the final preparations. On a distant hill, he sees the returning scouting party, Merc and the others. Asuha, a winged tengu, lands beside a large white wolf and calls his name. Joshua crouches and checks with a smaller wolf to confirm that everyone in her party is safe. Immediately, he orders his troops to surround the approaching enemy. The white wolf nods, accepting the task of capturing anyone who tries to flee. Asuha asks with concern whether he intends to face the enemy army alone. He confidently tells her and the wolf that he will be perfectly all right. Nearby, Ilya grips her sword, her expression tense with worry. Alone, Joshua steps forward with a powerful aura crackling around him as he prepares to fight. He feels personally responsible as a human to be the one to end this. The slave hunters press on, certain the werewolves they were chasing came this way. Two soldiers watch in confusion, one holding a lit torch. Without warning, a massive wall rises, blocking their path and leaving them stunned. Berating his subordinate, the commander grumbles they must have taken the wrong turn. He keeps yelling at the terrified soldier for getting them lost. Sir Burnish, a refined young man, steps forward and makes a dismissive gesture. Smugly, he says he knew all along that this was the right place. A soldier spots a werewolf on the wall, and it gives a defiant bark. Standing on the rampart, Joshua recognizes the approaching army as the slave hunters. With an intense look, he says he will talk to them. Burnish, their leader, looks up, doubtful of Joshua's odd request for a parley. Joshua shouts down, insisting on knowing who they are and what they've been doing. Burnish recognizes the name Joshua, and a look of dawning comprehension crosses his face. A flashback shows he had seen Joshua before and recognizes him as Loja's apprentice. Taunting Joshua, he asks if Joshua remembers him from the time he sharpened his sword. Firmly denying he remembers, Joshua's thoughts show he knows exactly who does the burnishing. Burnish laughs and condescendingly tells Joshua to stop playing and go to school. Joshua feels the insult because he knows magic engineers are barred from every university. Burnish asks Joshua for his approval as his men slip through the nearby woods. Surrounded by sparkles, he boasts about being an honor student. Joshua scorns him inwardly, convinced he and Loge are cut from the same cloth. Pointing out that hunting demis is forbidden, he only gets laughs from Burnish's group. Burnish's companion smirks as she begins to explain her twisted motives. Meta angrily insists she doesn't hunt for money, but does it because it's fun. Joshua's expression darkens as he realizes this motivation is even worse. Burnish summons a flame and boasts that you won't find this kind of fun at university. A grim flash reveals the charred remains of the werewolves they hunted. Asuha watches in horror as a similar image of fallen flying demis appears. Grinning cruelly, Burnish savors the thrilling memory of their screams. With a sneer, he says someone as talentless as Joshua could never experience such a thrill. His group laughs when he says he's glad he wasn't born trash like him. Joshua quietly says he'd rather die than become someone like his opponent. Murmurs ripple through the enemy group, but Joshua knows he must provoke him. Burnish lunges forward in rage, vowing to turn Joshua into ashes because trash must be burned. Joshua smirks, thinking his opponent is easy to manipulate and dismissing him as trash. Joshua grabs Burnish's wrist as Burnish tells him to be thankful for this honor. With Burnish still arrogantly boasting, Joshua clenches his fist, his own plan ready. Unleashing his god flame, he forms a massive vortex of high-level fire magic. Watching the powerful spell, Joshua feels a grim thought form in his mind. He wonders how many innocent demis this magic has already killed. Confused, the Burnish watches as Joshua prepares to launch his counterattack. Determined, Joshua says it's payback time, thanks to his magic storage. He releases two huge clouds of coal dust into the blazing inferno. Burnish's sigh deepens in shock as the fine powder drifts down toward his flames. The coal dust ignites in a violent blast, creating a massive fiery explosion. In a panic, Meta screams, pleading for the raging fire to stop immediately. Burning projectiles rain down on the enemy, who cry out in pain and shock. Flames strike a soldier, who desperately tries to beat them out. Joshua watches calmly, noting that the boar of fat will make the fire hard to extinguish. Asuha clenches her fist as another soldier screams because he doesn't want to die like this. Slavers are thrown into total chaos by the sudden, unavoidable fire attack. Tengu warriors spring into action, soaring over the panicked enemy soldiers below. Horrified, the slavers realize they're under attack from all sides and scream as they run. Meta's furious voice orders her forces to open fire. A mechanism clicks, launching flaming projectiles from the village walls. Projectiles rain down as the slavers see a gate opening ahead. They rush toward the gate, trampling one another in their desperation. A soldier screams in terror as gunfire hits him, realizing they are done for. Panicked troops shout orders to run into the forest to escape the flames. While they run, a new threat steps out from the tree's shadows. Snarling werewolves surge from the forest and cut off their escape. Amid the chaos, Ilia appears, her calm demeanor a sharp contrast to the fighting. A slaver sees her and freezes, surprised to find a woman in the middle of the fight. Cold fury hardens her expression as she grips her sword hilt. Her powerful slash cuts down several slavers in a single motion. Meta orders the other demis to open the gate and charge. Demi-human forces surge forward and overwhelm the disorganized slavers. Joshua's diverse group of allies watches the enemy's successful rout. Terrified, the remaining slavers decide the forest is too dangerous and head for the river. They flee in a chaotic mob, their will to fight completely gone. Two young horned demis pant from exertion and say they have defeated the humans. Consumed by fury, Meta rushes forward, shouting to stop them from escaping. Joshua stops her quickly and says he wants to question the captives instead. Meta nods, your new objective is to capture them alive. Awkwardly, she corrects herself, asking if she only needs to catch them, not kill them. The big white wolf steps in and offers to handle the capture to prevent any accidents. The werewolves easily outrun her, and Meta complains that she could catch them too. Joshua watches the chase, looking thoughtful as Asuha approaches. Meeting his gaze with a somber look, she thanks him sincerely. In a forest clearing, Suha tells Joshua the man they defeated attacked her village. A single dirty hand on the ground is proof of their hard-won victory. Their success sparks a fire in the demi-humans, who shout that they want to attack. Ilya moves through the excited chatter and asks Joshua for his decision. Acknowledging the golden opportunity, he wisely warns them not to push their luck too far. The big werewolf leader agrees and says their tactics have always put allies' safety first. Joshua gasps and realizes they don't actually need to take the enemy base. Fist clenched, he says their only goal is to free the captured demis. With this new strategy, the scene shifts beneath a cloudy sky. A large group of defeated human soldiers now kneels on the ground in submission. Meta proudly announces its success, while Joshua thanks Merc for her help with the capture. Joshua instantly conjures an ornate mask with his magic for the next phase of his plan. He assembles his key companions Maida, Asuha, Ilya, and Merc for a briefing. Putting on the mask, he confidently tells everyone to just follow his lead. Stepping in front of the kneeling soldiers, he is ready to start his elaborate deception. Wearing a mask, Joshua immediately demands to know how many men are at their base. A soldier flinches as Ilya moves threateningly behind him, her patience nearly gone. A cold, sharp glint from her blade appears right beside the terrified soldier's face. With her sword half drawn, Ilya complains that the interrogation is taking too long. Glaring menacingly, she gives the soldier 10 seconds to answer her question. Terrified, the soldier yelps and immediately agrees to talk. Shouting, he says there are about 50 soldiers currently stationed at the base. His comrades plead desperately, confirming what he said and begging to be spared. After securing the information, Asuha gathers the werewolves and Tengu for the next move. She orders them to follow the prisoner and move north toward the base. A powerful army of demi-humans advances, escorting their human captives. Joshua surveys his uninjured troops and sees the numbers are now clearly in their favor. Ilya asks if he has a plan and replies with a short, confident yup. He announces an audacious plan to free everyone without a single casualty. As the main force prepares to depart, Joshua calls to a surprised Meta. A comrade says half the demons must stay behind to protect the village. Joshua reassures the disappointed Meta that her role as a guard is vital. Moved by his trust, Meta accepts the duty and wishes him good luck. Joshua entrusts Meta with a key role and tells her he is counting on her. Joshua sweeps his arm with determination and orders the rest of his forces to follow. A diverse army of demi-humans and captives moves through the dense, hilly forest. A voice calls his name, and Joshua turns, looking surprised. Merc, the small white wolf, trots up to report that they are nearing the human base. They see the imposing fortress through a clearing, confirming they have reached their destination. Joshua stops his forces and announces he will explain the plan to everyone first. Demi-humans and their captives have gathered to hear his strategy. Blonde warrior Ilya asked Joshua what he had planned for their attack. Joshua smiles confidently and outlines his simple plan to surround the fortress. Ilya doubts a passive siege without a fight will work. She insists they must defeat the 50 soldiers inside to free their friends. Joshua highlights a major flaw, warning the enemy could hold captives as hostages. He warns that trapping the enemy with no escape will force them into desperate actions. Recognizing the risk, Ilya agrees to trust his judgment and let him handle the strategy. She confirms her top priority is avoiding bloodshed and agrees with his cautious approach. Joshua says they are in the perfect position to negotiate under the starry sky. He calls to Wiz, the young woman with a small slime. Joshua conjures a huge pile of torches for their forces. He tells the cute squirming slimes to give each warrior 2 torches. A werewolf and a horned demon chat while the slimes hand them torches. The diverse army of demi-humans murmurs as they gear up for the bluff. Joshua uses a magical spark to order the torches lit and the flame passed. Torches burst into flame with a loud whoosh, lighting up the dark forest. He orders the werewolves to form a perimeter from the east to the north. The Tengu are ordered to take to the skies and patrol over the fortress. He tells the demons to come from the south and bring the captives. Joshua chooses Ilya, Merc, and Asaha to go with him and one of the captives. He puts on an ornate mask to hide his identity for the upcoming negotiation. With 2 massive, rumbling golems at its sides, the masked Joshua declares it's time to negotiate. A massive fortress stands silent under the night sky, waiting for their arrival. A guard at the wall calls out excitedly that their commander, Sir Burnish, has returned. Leaning in, his companion shouts in panic when he realizes the figures are not their commander. On the fortress ramparts, a guard watches in horror as countless torches encircle the walls. Ilya stands beside the main group, calm, her expression refreshed by the tense atmosphere. Guards panic as one lets out a piercing screech warning of an enemy attack. Amid the chaos, the men shout, confused, and tell someone to warn their leader, Cercobes. Below, Joshua's small party watches the chaos unfold while he looks satisfied. He sees the enemy is clearly shaken, Ilya stays calm, and the captive soldier is exhausted. Asua, a winged girl, looks on, utterly dazed and exhausted from the stressful events. A portly commander on the wall answers. Cercobes shouts and demands to know whose army this is. Stepping forward, the masked Joshua declares he is a demi. He proclaims that they are the envoys of the newly formed Fendal Alliance. Ilya and Iswa, his companions, look shocked because they have never heard the name before. Joshua quietly tells his friends he made the name up on the spot. He then loudly declares that demis from Fendal formed the alliance to fight slave hunters. Sir Kobai calls the claim ridiculous and threatens to attack the fortress below. Joshua retorts, asking whether Kobe even realizes how many tribes his forces have attacked. Suha declares the sea of fire around them is the blaze of their anger. A subordinate tells shocked Kobe that their other commander Burnish was also consumed by fire. A captive soldier beside Joshua calls to his former commander, ready to confirm the story. Tearfully, he reveals that Sir Burnish and his soldiers were wiped out in under 10 minutes. Sir Kobe looks out over his fortress, breathing hard with fear and disbelief. High above, Wing Tingu sees that the fortress is now completely surrounded by demis. Joshua gives his final ultimatum, telling them to free everyone or face death. The stark choice leaves her fellow bees stunned and speechless. Asuha says their golems can destroy the fortress gate, and Kobe's beg them to wait. Joshua makes clear the demands are not for money, but that the slavers must leave and free their captives. An advisor tells Kobe's the best course is to free the slaves and escape. Kobe grits his teeth and agrees to their demands, asking whether they will keep their word. Seizing Ilya, Joshua threatens to kill her if Kobe tries any tricks. A blunt, brutal threat jolts Succubus with pure terror. Overwhelmed and defeated, he shouts that he will accept all their demands. Joshua issues the final command to open the gate and free every single slave. The massive gates swing open, and a crowd of freed demis pours out, cheering. He then ordered his 3 companions to enter the fortress and make sure no one was left behind. Surprised, Ilya watches as a golem directs a crowd of demi-humans. Mission complete, Ilya reports back to the masked Joshua. At the open fortress gate, she stands with a small slime and a wolf beside her. With a somber expression, she confirms that all living captives were freed, though some had already died. With dawn approaching, Joshua decides they have done enough and must withdraw. As they leave, he notices the fortress commander Kobai sneaking away. Joshua confronts him, and the terrified commander says he definitely freed everyone. Then he promises that he and his men will leave and never come back. Standing with his allies behind him, Joshua tells the defeated humans the demis are not foolish. Slamming his hand down, he says they will accept their word for now. The commander orders all his soldiers to withdraw from the area. Safe in the woods, the victorious demi-humans watch their enemies flee. Walking back, Joshua asks Merc if they're being followed, and Merc confirms the coast is clear. A companion asks about the Fendal Alliance he mentioned earlier. With a smile, Joshua says he just made it up to sound more intimidating. Doubt flickers across Ilya's face as she listens. She fears that with their common enemy gone, their hard-won alliance could fall apart. Surprised, Joshua hears Ilya express that concern. Asuha immediately rejects the idea, saying they will always be with them. They want to stay, she insists, as long as Joshua and the others agree. Joshua comes up with a brilliant idea and suggests expanding the Fendal Alliance. Ilya brightens with renewed hope and happily agrees to continue working together. Joshua carefully considers the next logical step for their new organization. Suggesting the alliance needs a representative, he freezes as he realizes what that would mean. Immediately, Ilya, Asuha, and Merc turn to him and stare expectantly. Ilya insists passionately that the plan succeeded because of his superior knowledge. Asuha earnestly adds that she believes he should lead them. Merc points out that he proposed the alliance first. Joshua feels torn, worried that being human means not everyone will accept him. He quietly weighs the pros and cons and sees the benefits of being an outsider. Before he can decide, Ilya eagerly names him leader and explains the terms. The group cheers in agreement as Merc congratulates a slightly stunned Joshua. Returning, they found their village protected by a strong stone wall and gate. A huge, joyful celebration unfolds as the newly freed demis revel together. Meta greets Joshua and marvels at how many people they rescued. Joshua spots smoke rising and asks where it's coming from. Meta proudly says she put together a huge feast for everyone, and he praised her. He admits he hadn't even thought of that and is impressed by her foresight. Smiling, Meta says she would of course be thoughtful because she is his wife. Joshua is left completely speechless by her calm, shocking declaration. Calmly, she says that honesty is a demon virtue and that she had planned to tell him. Meta grabs an amplifier and loudly announces her new status to the crowd. Ilya confronts Meta, her face cold as she stares her down. The other Demi, shuddered and in shock, made a bold public move. Ilya admits Meta's crafty declaration was smarter than she had expected. Meta replies that she is simply stating the facts and that Joshua will be her husband. Refusing to be outdone, Ilya grabs Joshua's arm with a determined expression. Since the day is so memorable, she says they should get married and pleads with him to marry her. Two women argue fiercely while Joshua, bewildered, tries to step in. He insists he's not planning to marry anyone just yet. Merc slips into the chaos, brushes against his leg, and playfully claims to be his wife too. Meta and Ilya agree to settle their dispute with a boar hunting competition. Asuha steps in as the voice of reason and says they should all eat the prepared food. Ilya says Joshua must be tired too. She then accuses Suhav of trying to get close to him by pretending to be sensible. Both Meta and Ilya insist they are the best fit for Joshua. Flustered, Asuha clings to Joshua's arm and insists she is the best fit for him. Small demon children join in, playfully tapping Joshua and thanking him for the food. A celebratory scene reveals the newly formed Findal alliance of demons, werewolves, and Tengu. Feeling overwhelmed, Joshua sighs and prays his new alliance won't fall apart on its first day. Later at the lively feast, the group of demis enjoys their meal. Ilya notices Joshua is gone and finds out he went south of the village. Alone, Joshua surveys the settlement with a thoughtful expression. When the demis find him, he tells them they urgently need more housing. Smiling, he tells them he needed to build more right away. A long, pristine street lined with 200 newly built houses appears instantly. There is still extra land in the south, available for future expansion. Stunned, Ilyo arrives, amazed at how much he built in just a few hours. Offering him a drink, she sincerely praises his excellent work with a warm smile. He takes the drink and thanks her for her kindness. Joshua watches, a bead of sweat on his face as he prepares to speak. He apologizes for making everyone help with the building because he thought they were tired. Ilya reassures him, saying they are all working willingly to keep up with him. He reflects that he was never praised or asked to cooperate in the order. Deeply satisfied, he spontaneously pulls Ilya into a hug. Puffing her cheeks happily, she reminds him they cannot let their guard down yet. He immediately returns to planning and suggests they start farming. Ilya is surprised to discover that some of the freed captives have experience farming. Excited by the awesome news, Joshua holds Ilya close. He identifies their next problem as getting seeds and livestock, which are hard to find. He considers their options, which are searching the fortress or buying them in the city. Joshua asks Ilya whether she's ever seen a sheep, and the question confuses her. He describes them as fluffy animals, and Suha confirmed she has seen them before. Sheep are unlikely to be nearby, he notes, because they avoid dangerous areas. He asks Asuha to let him, and Merc will know if she finds any. Smiling, Joshua says he's going back to work. Blushing, Asuha quickly offers to accompany him and help. Ilya scolds him and insists he must rest after being awake for so long. Joshua looks at her, his face showing concern for her well-being. Both agree that everyone should take a short break. 2 days later, the settlement has grown rapidly, lined with rows of new houses. On a balcony, Joshua and Ilya survey their finished work. Admiring the view, they say their home now looks like a real town. Joshua announces their next project will be a stable water supply, surprising Ilya. Trembling with awe, she asks whether he will create a river, and he denies it. He outlines a more practical plan to dig a trench to divert water from the village river. Bilyo admits his new plan still sounds like a very tough job. He says he has already asked some demis to start digging the waterway. Expecting the project to be completed by the next day, he once again impresses Ilya. Oddly, she says there seems to be nothing he can't make. She blushes as she prepares to ask him for a special favor. Ilya, a young woman, nervously speaks to Joshua, a dark-haired young man. Fidgeting, shyly makes a special request to take effect after the village waterway is completed. Joshua willingly agrees to make whatever she needs, and she responds with gratitude. Ilya grows more excited as he points out a southern spring where warm water pours out. Joshua brightens at the mention of a hot spring. Surprised to realize he knows them, Ilya says they are quite nice. Enthusiastically, he recalls how they refresh the body and relieve fatigue. Ilya shares her dream of a hot spring in their village for proper bathing. After apologizing for being selfish, she hears him reassure her that it's a good idea. Considering they're bathing in the cold riverbed, he agrees their situation isn't ideal. Joshua decides channeling the warm spring water directly is the best plan. Her eyes are sparkling. Ilya eagerly offers to guide him there. Her face lights up with pure joy when he agrees to go on the expedition. A happy smile instantly turns into a comical, menacing growl of irritation. Ilya glares at the three figures who appeared out of nowhere, breaking their private moment. Maida, Asuha, and Merc burst in dramatically, demanding to know what is happening. Asuha says she sensed an exciting outing and decided to join them. Meta insists they cannot allow Joshua and Ilya to go into a dangerous area alone. Ilya scoffs, dismissed their reason as just an excuse to tag along. Flustered, Ilya denies she plans to bathe, but Meta points out the towel she's carrying. Joshua steps in to calm things, saying they are only going to inspect the spring. After settling the matter, Ilya leads the now larger group forward with determination. Arriving at a picturesque clearing, Joshua notes the natural beauty. Noticing the water bubbling, he cautiously reaches out and tests its temperature with his hand. Yelping in pain, he jerks his hand back from the scalding water. Clutching his burned hand, he says the spring is far too hot for anyone to enter. Ilya eagerly offers to wash his back, and Meta immediately claims the task for herself. Taken aback by their boldness, Joshua firmly declines their offers of help. In the background, Meta and Asuha are already happily splashing in the hot water. Meta wonders if only daemons can withstand the intense heat. Asuha decides they must cool the water for the other demi-humans. Joshua figures the water will still be warm when it reaches the village. Sudden deep rhythmic rumbling shakes the ground and startles the entire group. Joshua thinks it might be an earthquake, but Merc senses it is not. Asuha guesses the footsteps belong to a large herd of boars. Aware of the threat to the village, Joshua decides they must investigate. He apologizes for interrupting, and Ilya tells him not to worry. Meta playfully teases Ilya for being the most upset about the interrupted bath. Joshua promises the grateful Meta they will build a proper hot spring later. He asks Asaha to fly ahead and warn the village, and she agrees immediately. Asuha rises into the sky and flies swiftly toward their home to deliver the message. Joshua declares the others will leave the forest to confront the threat. They break into a full sprint toward the source of the disturbance. Tension tightens Joshua's face as he runs, feeling how massive the approaching herd is. He spots a massive dust cloud, confirming a large group of boars could cause it. Elsewhere, a red-haired man points out that armored boars rarely gather in groups. Joshua and Ilya step out of the trees, unsure about the advance of the Demon King's army. At the ridge, they get their first clear view of the commotion on the plains. Joshua's eyes widen as he realizes the creatures are nothing like he expected. A huge dark mass thunders across the field below them in a stampede. The creatures nibble greedily at the grass as they move forward. He stares in disbelief, recognizing the herd as monstrous sheep called fleeps. Joshua explains that fleeps are sheep the Demon King's army turned into monsters. He adds that they are fierce and intelligent, despite their valuable wool and milk. He knows how hard it would be to take on such a large, dangerous herd. One of the fleeps flinches suddenly after sensing them on the ridge. It turns and sounds an alarm, warning the whole flock about the humans. Anger flares in the fleet's expression as it accuses them of getting in the way. Realizing this, the red-haired observer identifies the talking fleet as the herd's leader. Ilya shudders as the fleet's mood turns threatening, even with the tasty grass. The boss fleet orders the herd to attack and eliminate the humans. The fleet leader in sunglasses rallies its followers with shouts against humans. A massive stampede erupts, the ground trembling under the force of their charge. Alarm tightens Joshua's face as the overwhelming force closes in on them. Ilya steps in front of him firmly, tells him to stand back and gets ready to fight. Joshua tells Meta they must fall back to the village because they are outnumbered. Preparing to flee, he sees Merc has stopped and asks what is wrong. Merc feels a strange tingle, a primal urge to stand and face the danger. Before Joshua can react, Merc unleashes a powerful echoing howl that rolls across the field. A pack of large, fierce werewolves appears suddenly, drawn by the call. The werewolves bare their sharp teeth and growl at the approaching threat. Joshua shouts a panicked warning, convinced a direct confrontation is too dangerous. Ilya alerts Joshua to a sudden shift in the enemy's advance. Charging fleeps have come to an abrupt stop, frozen with fear. Disoriented, the fleeps find their bodies feel strange, and their legs cannot move. One of them whimpers that the dog-like creatures are terrifying to look at. Joshua sees their natural predator-prey relationship could be the key to victory. Seizing the chance, he orders Merc to send the werewolves to surround the fleeps. Paralyzed fleeps shudder with fear as the wolves close in on them. Werewolves quickly surround the panicked herd, leaving no way to escape. The trapped fleeps bleed in terror, unsure what to do now. Now that the enemy is contained, Joshua uses his magic to build a strong wooden fence. Now the fleeps are trapped, squished together inside the magical corral. A fleep notices a new threat coming up behind them. The village's remaining defenders, horned and winged demis, arrive. The fleet boss shouts at the others to stop acting weak. Now free of fear, Ilya gives the decisive order to take them all down. Creeping up silently, she slips behind one of the trapped fleeps. Sword drawn, she prepares to strike the unsuspecting creature. Alarm spreads through the fleet as Ilya looms over it. The fleet leader staggers and hits the ground with a heavy thud. The rest of the flock cry out in alarm that their leader, Ceres, has fallen. Ilya asks Joshua for guidance because the fleeps have lost their will to fight. Joshua suggests they question the creatures because they can speak. The group faces a vast, nervous flock ready to speak. A fleep blinks slowly, its posture slumped in complete defeat. Ilya steps forward slowly, reassuring the frightened creatures that he means no harm. The fleet says humans attacked them recently and they are terrified. Joshua asks if they belong to the Demon King's army, and the creature confirms it. It recounts how they were captured and chose to escape their terrible confinement. A fleep describes the cruel treatment it endured, given only muddy water and rotten meat. After escaping, the creature says it lives in constant fear, hunted by everyone. Joshua confirms they are now in dangerous human territory. While the fleeps bleed nervously, Ilya gently tugs Joshua's sleeve to get his attention. Ilya suggests they could offer help, and a surprised Joshua asks if she is sure. Ilya smiles brightly and confidently leaves the decision to Joshua, the leader of their alliance. Rattled by the title, Joshua decides to address the trembling creatures. Facing the nervous flock, Joshua tells them he will take them all in. Ceres, the fleet leader, looks up, surprised by the sudden offer of sanctuary. Joshua proposes they make this land their new permanent home, much to everyone's shock. He proposes a fair exchange, asking for fur and milk in return for protection. The fleeps are ecstatic, saying they would be more than happy with such a deal. Grateful, Ceres thanks the relieved creature, and Joshua formally introduces himself. Joshua seals the agreement with a firm grip, shaking the fleet's hoof as a sign of partnership. They start a new journey, walking across the grassy plains toward the settlement. Joshua says the location is convenient, close to both the river and their village. When he asked what kind of housing they preferred, Ceres requested a large communal shed. Recognizing their need, Joshua agrees to build a large shed for the whole flock. A massive modern shed appears instantly, with a dramatic dun before their eyes. The fleeps are stunned, declaring him more impressive than the Demon King's own generals. Elated, they gather around him, offering fur and milk right away. Merc and Asuha touch the fleep's wool, which is incredibly fluffy and warm. Suha marvels at the exceptional softness of the fur, while Joshua decides to take some. Peeking into the shed, Joshua already pictures the fine fabric and soft bedding he can make. Inside, the whole flock lies fast asleep, piled together in a soft, fluffy mass. He notes they must be exhausted after so long on the run. Joshua lets them rest, but he is still thinking about making new bedding. One member of the fleet stirs, surprising Joshua by inviting him to sleep with them. The creature explains that the Demon King's army used fleeps as portable beds. Smiling, the fleet asks him to come by later, and Joshua gladly accepts. Tonight the scene shifts to a bright full moon hanging over the village. A flip lies sound asleep under the bed covers, snoring softly. Joshua's body in contentment settled into the incredibly soft, pleasant fluff. Noticing the fur is even better than he imagined, he then feels something soft and plump. Joshua opens his eyes, stunned and flustered by his unexpected discovery. Recoiling in surprise, he emits a startled bleat as he tries to figure out what he just touched. He squishes something soft, surprising the other person. A girl with sheep-like horns appears and accuses him of being dirty for touching her. Bristling, she reminds him there is an order to how they handle their milk. Remembering her promise to let him have it whenever he wanted, she relents. A brilliant flash of light erupts in front of Joshua, briefly blinding him. The The sudden transformation leaves him completely shocked and speechless. Two young women with sheep-like features stand where the fleeps were before. Ceres says their devil blood lets them transform into their devil forms. She says being in a human form will make it easier for him to drink the milk. Bouncing playfully, she urges him to drink up immediately. A stern voice calls Ceres' name, and Ilya appears behind her with a displeased look. Ilya reminds Ceres that everything follows in order, her presence rumbling with authority. Terrified, she stammers, unsure if offering the milk was wrong. Calmly, Ilya tells Joshua she will not blame him for his ignorance, then grabs Ceres. Pulling the protesting fleet aside, Ilya says she will set some ground rules. Lying in bed, Joshua swallows hard, hoping Ceres will be okay. He sees Merc and Asuha sleeping peacefully beside him under the covers. He looks at the moon and decides these peaceful, yet chaotic days are not so bad. The scene jumps ahead 3 days to a clear sky. New tools for fishing, farming, and mining are helping the community thrive. The whole group is happy and celebrating the comfortable bedding made from fleep fur and boar leather. A horned girl points proudly to the new sheds and warehouses and credits Joshua's work. Joshua and his friends admire the new waterway running through the village. A wolf companion is eager to get in the water, but Joshua says it's just for drinking. The horned girl says it will make fetching water easier, and Joshua thinks they've done everything they can. Ilya announces she will scout the old fortress, and Joshua decides to join her. As chief, she insists he should have her as his guard. The horned girl fears Ilya could be listening to them right now. Merc the white wolf trots forward and announces he will go with them too. Elian says that since the others are busy, it will be just the 3 of them. Merc offers to scout ahead, and Joshua says they'll catch up soon. The 3 set out, a formidable stone fortress looming in the distance. A group of fleeps grazes peacefully in a field while the journey continues. Joshua and the horned girl walk through the woods, their faces calm. Startled, Joshua looks up when Merc urgently calls his name. Panting, Merc rushes back to them and says something is very wrong at the fortress. The wolf brings grim news that the people they saw earlier are all dead. Joshua freezes when he realizes the slave hunters have been murdered. He remembers their leader, Kobe, and Merc confirms that he is among the dead. Merc reveals a key detail and says other people were also killed. The horned girl now suspects it wasn't a simple betrayal by mercenaries, as she first thought. Joshua and his companions look on with grim faces, taking in the bad news. He decides they should go see for themselves and heads toward the fortress. They arrive to find total devastation, the fortress reduced to rubble. Joshua freezes in shock at the wreckage and the bodies impaled on spikes. Standing over a corpse, the horned girl watches the brutal way the killings were carried out. She concludes the attackers must have harbored a deep grudge against their victims. Joshua believes a nearby demogroup may have attacked the slavers to get revenge. He notes that even the houses and fields have been burned to the ground. He hopes to find surviving crop seeds, while Merc gives a low warning growl. Tensing, the wolf senses something moving toward them through the ruins. A sudden BM sends several figures out of the rubble around the trio. One of the figures, a demi-human with tiger-like ears, twitches and becomes alert. The ambushers turn out to be a formidable group of warriors with striped tails. They keep their curved blades ready, standing in a powerful, intimidating posture. Joshua's eyes widen when he recognizes the mysterious attackers. Called demi-tigers, they are the infamous Grant mercenaries. The girl with horns mishears the name, and Joshua says they're from the state of Grank. A flashback reveals their tragic past of being driven from their home by slave hunters. Joshua says that although he had heard of them, he never expected to meet them here. A fierce young mercenary leader orders them to raise their hands and surrender. Joshua shouts back, insisting they are not enemies and that they were the ones fighting the slavers. Nia, the leader, scoffs at his claim and calls him a cowardly slave hunter. Drawing her katana, Meta defends Joshua, saying he is not like other humans. A demi-tiger warrior confronts a horned girl and calls her a slave. She gives the horned girl a pitying look and calls her a poor bastard. Blades slam together in a furious shower of sparks, locking them in combat. Screaming her refusal, the horned girl faces an opponent who mockingly praises her strength. Joshua orders his wolf companion Merc to protect him while the fight continues. Meta and the demi-tiger are almost evenly matched in strength, he notes. He warns that more demi-tigers are joining the battle. Joshua steps in to avoid making enemies of the mercenaries. Still locked in the duel, Meta warns him to stay back. Unmoved by her plea, he rushes forward to use his crafting magic. He thrusts his hand forward and shouts the incantation to summon a rock wall. The demi-tiger leader is thrown back, eyes wide in shock. Staggering from the impact, she tries to make sense of what just happened. Joshua watches her reaction, satisfied that his intervention worked. Unfazed, the warrior jumps onto the wall and declares the fight is not over. An older demi-tiger suddenly steps forward and orders his daughter Nia to stop. Nia insists to her father that Joshua's group is clearly suspicious. Her father agrees, noting the rare pairing of a human and a werewolf. He watches the horned demon Meta complete the strange trio. The older warrior notes that a sight like that is rare. An arrow whistles past, its speed startling the mercenaries. Neo spins around, shocked by the sudden projectile. Everyone in the group turns, startled by the sudden attack from the ruins. A silhouetted archer steps into view, demanding to know who is there. Joshua stares in disbelief as he recognizes the newcomer as his friend Ilya. Ilya rests a firm hand on the hilt of her sheathed katana. Enraged, the demi-tiger charges Ilya, ignoring his leader's order to stop. Ilya uses remarkable skill to parry the attacks of two mercenaries at once. Nia, leader of the demi-tigers, watches the duel unfold with a stoic expression. Ilya grits her teeth and calls her attacker a jerk during the intense fight. She shouts forcefully at the mercenaries to back away from Mr. Joshua. Joshua watches the rapid exchange of blows, noticing how fast both fighters are. Noticing the demi-tiger holding back and keeping one sword sheathed, Joshua shouts for Ilya to stop, insisting her opponent has no real intent to kill. The male demi-tiger admits his sword will not hold up against Ilya's immense strength. Nia tells her father she plans to join the fight, but he stops her. Calmly, the father says Ilya is not an opponent his subordinate can defeat. Joshua relaxes, relieved that the leader is not hostile. Watching Ilya's incredible speed, the older mercenary considers how the fight will end. After the fight, he apologizes and introduces himself as Balon. The young man replies that his name is Joshua. Balon asks if he is from the Fendal Alliance, the merchant that was mentioned. Joshua confirms it and asks about the slave hunters' bodies. Balon explains the slavers owed them a debt, so they came to collect it. Joshua understands and explains they had asked the slavers to leave the area. Apologizing, Balon says they have nothing left to give Joshua's group. Joshua agrees, saying they'll at least check the fields for crops. After finishing their business, Balon says they will head back south. Then he turns to his daughter and calls her name, Nia. Merc asks if they were looking for someone, and Nia says she didn't find anyone. Balon asks Merc if he has noticed any other demi-tigers nearby. Grateful, the male demi-tiger thanks Merc and promises to tell them if he finds someone. Joshua figures out what's happened, hoping they find their captured friends soon. Sudden loud thuds and crashes echo nearby. Balon turns to the commotion and says the situation is awful. A disastrous pileup of wagons is the source of the noise. Two younger demi-tigers struggle in the wreckage of their transport. Wagons lie in a heap with broken wheels and shattered frames. Other mercenaries are upset and complain about their ruined vehicles. Fuming, Nia yells that their precious wagons have been destroyed. Balon sighs, realizing they now have to carry their luggage by hand. Joshua steps forward to repair the wagons with his crafting magic. Nia gives him a skeptical look, unconvinced he can fix all five. After assessing the damage, he concludes that only the wheels and axles need repair. Joshua smiles confidently and says he can finish in a few minutes. Nia laughs dismissively, finding his bold claim ridiculous. She insists even the best mages need a whole day for a single wagon. Joshua says cheerfully that the mages were probably busy with other tasks. Balon and Mia watch with thoughtful, slightly skeptical expressions. Intrigued, Balon lets him try and promises to thank him when he finishes. Joshua kneels by the wreckage and prepares to start his work. He decides it's better to make new wooden axles from scratch. One gesture makes all the wagons disappear in a puff of magic. Neopanex demanded to know where their wagons had gone. Balon tells his frantic daughter to calm down and just watch. He admits that although he knows how to craft magic, this is beyond the ordinary. Joshua notes he's never seen anyone else store a whole wagon. He realizes his crafting magic is unusually advanced, even by Southern standards. Instantly, the repaired wagons reappear, as good as new. Deeply impressed, Balon spontaneously invites Joshua to join their mercenary group. Ilya objects at once, her expression sharp and protective. Joshua's other companions close in, circling him possessively. Joshua smiles gently and politely declines Balon's invitation. Balon offers an alternative. They'll hire him to make repairs when he's nearby. He then asks Joshua how he would like to be paid for the repairs. Joshua requests a reasonable number of crop seeds, if available. Surprised, Balon agrees and tells a subordinate to bring the seeds. Nia protests, asking why they would give away seeds they can't plant themselves. She reveals that the seeds are a treasured legacy from Grant and her mother. In a somber tone, Balon says this is better than letting the seeds rot. He wants to leave them with someone who can help them grow. Handing the heavy sack to Joshua, he identifies it as Grant barley. Struggling under the heavy sack, Joshua gets more and more advice from Balon. After they finish their business, Balon waves goodbye and invites Joshua to visit. He pauses as a serious expression comes over his face. The mercenary leader gives a final, simple warning: be careful. Joshua asks whether he means more slave hunters, and Balon dismisses the idea. Accepting the vague warning, he gives a quiet thanks, worry flickering across his face. Balon gives a final wave as his group gets ready to leave. Joshua and his friends watched as the mercenaries' ghostly trails faded. A small white, fox-like creature grumbles as it surveys the disappointingly few usable seeds. Joshua remains optimistic and says their modest haul is still a very good start. A flashback shows how they searched the fields after the mercenaries left. Merc the fox had relied on her sharp nose and found just 200 turnips. Now back in the present, Joshua decides to make increasing the seed supply their main goal. He begins a long, technical explanation about how Demon King turnips absorb people. Complex details go over Merc's head, leaving the creature confused. Joshua explains that they are large, fast-growing turnips that can be harvested in a month. Then he mentions the barley they received, noting that it tastes very bitter but is still edible. Joshua clenches his fist and resolves to prepare a field for the new crops. Smiling with determination, he says he is ready to begin. Facing a wide, overgrown stretch, he says it will be their new field. The first necessary step, he says, is to clear all the weeds. A sudden bright idea comes to him as he considers the best way to proceed. He calls to Ceres and her distant flock of fluffy black creatures. Joshua asks whether Ceres and the Fleeps are willing to eat the grass. Ceres smiles cheerfully and readily agrees to help them clear the field. Joshua tells his companions to start tilling the soil where the Fleeps have grazed. He shows Meta, a horned girl, the sack of seeds they will plant. Meta inspects the completely black barley seeds, wondering whether they will actually grow. Joshua admits he has little farming experience, but trusts Balon's word that they will. Ilya, a blonde girl, arrives with a group of experienced farmers to help them. Villagers work side by side, tilling the soil as the fleets graze in the background. A diverse group of demi-humans carefully begins planting the seeds in the freshly tilled soil. With determination, Metasmiles smiles, ready to help with the communal farming effort. Holding a clump of soil and seeds, Ilyab prepares to plant them carefully. Hoping, she whispers a prayer that the lone seed will multiply. Joshua watches her gentle movements with a quiet, supportive smile. He remembers Balon wanting someday to see a beautiful field of barley from his homeland. Recalling Balon and his daughter strengthens Joshua's determination to succeed. The community comes together peacefully to plant seeds for their future. A few days later, a little girl's face appears, and she asks for a favor. Calling Joshua's name, she has her request ready on her lips. Joshua, sitting and reading, looks up with thoughtful surprise at the interruption. Two young girls, Merc and Isuha, approach him with a request. Their eyes sparkling, the two girls say together that they want new clothes. Joshua asks whether they mean a special kind of clothing for a particular purpose. Eagerly, they said they wanted matching outfits to look like real magicians. Joshua understands their request and agrees to make them with soft fleep fur. He studies the design to match the magician's clothes as the girls watch expectantly. With a quick magical flourish, he conjures two beautiful, ornate new robes. His hand moves smoothly and precisely as the magical crafting finishes. Merc twirls happily in her new outfit and asks Joshua what he thinks. Smug and proud, he praises his own excellent handiwork. He tells Asuha the new robe suits her and will aid her magic studies. Asuha shyly asks him what he thinks of her outfit as she lifts a leg. A close-up reveals her traditional footwear and the flowers blooming around her. Merc then insists that Joshua must continue teaching her magic. He gently tells her he's already taught her all the basics he knows. He suggests she would need a school grimoire to learn more. Reluctant to leave, she insists he just make a grimoire for her. He has to tell them he can't create everything from scratch. Joshua promises he'll buy her a grimoire from a human town if he gets the chance. Mentioning human towns makes Merc's ear twitch in irritation. Noticing their disappointment, Joshua tries to take back his offer, but it's too late. Merc gives him a serious look and says she doesn't want him to leave. Asuha tugs his sleeve to get his attention too. Merc asks Asuha what's going on between them. Meta bursts in dramatically, dragging along a huge boar and praising the girls' new outfits. Asuha tells Meta smugly that Joshua made their stylish robes. Blushing, Meta watches and murmurs that she wants a special outfit too. Merc replies that a magician's look would not suit a warrior like Meta. Furious, Meta insists she looks good in anything she wears. Joshua steps in and offers to make whatever clothes Meta wants. Anger fades, replaced by a delighted, hopeful expression as she considers it. Meta grows flustered, unable to decide right away which outfit she wants. Joshua and the others watch her struggle to think of a request. After a moment of thought, Meta clenches her fists, her decision made. Turning the question back to him, she asks which clothes he wants. Joshua compliments her current armor, sparking a brilliant idea. Meta, eyes sparkling, asks for the special clothes humans wear for weddings. The other two girls notice humans also wear special wedding clothes. Joshua confirms it, and Meta tugs on his clothes, saying that's what she wants. Both Merc and Asuha immediately call out that they want wedding dresses too. Chaos erupts when Meta announces she will marry Joshua. Ilio arrives and scolds the others for getting Joshua into trouble. Joshua smiles warmly and assures everyone he could never hate them. Playfully, he tells Ilya he might end up hating her, then admits he never could. Ilya gently takes his hand, her expression tender and full of feeling. Tears in her eyes, she tells Joshua she loves him forever. A calm, satisfied smile spreads across her face as she savors the moment. Blushing, Joshua returns her feelings and admits he loves her too. Quickly, he adds that he loves all of them, drawing a collective stare. Meta accuses Ilya of trying to get ahead, but is told to stop being difficult. Asuha says Joshua is just tired of their childish behavior. Ilya smugly says a leader's partner must be a calm, mature woman like her. As they argue, Joshua thinks about how he ended up a leader. Recently, he was asked to approve a couple's marriage in the village. Reflecting on his new responsibilities, he feels genuinely glad to help others. A shadow of doubt crosses his mind about his ability to protect everyone. Determined to help the villagers, he will work with all his strength. A dark memory of his friends betraying him resurfaces and shakes his confidence. Joshua is hit by a wave of self-doubt and begins to question his ability to lead. Ilya notices his distress and, with concern, asks if he is feeling unwell. His menacing expression makes others think he is afraid of Ilya. He brushes off their concerns, saying he was just lost in thought. He distracts them by offering to make clothes for everyone if they stop fighting. Ilya smiles warmly and offers to help with anything he needs. Meta places a hand over her heart and calls him their precious friend, almost like her husband. The other girls offer steady support and encourage him to lean on them. Joshua, a young man, gives his friends a warm, grateful smile. A sudden, strange thumping makes him wonder if he heard something. A small, fluffy creature rushes in and urgently announces that Joshua is in trouble. He asks the panting creature, Ceres, what is wrong as his friends watch. The Ceres reports they saw a large group of people while grazing in the south. The creature adds that a menacing horde of orcs was right behind them. Joshua knows with grim certainty that this is the Demon King's army. Shock floods his face as he takes in the impossible news of their arrival. Racing through the village streets, he startles an Ilya watching him. His thoughts race, remembering the Demon King's army was gaining momentum when he left. Running to the gate, he knows he cannot ignore this. Far off, he spots a dust cloud kicked up by the approaching horde. His worried friends, a group of demi-humans, rush to catch up with him. He yells at them, warning that a neutral demi helping humans would pose a serious political threat. He tells the hornblower at the gate to lock it firmly after leaving. A friend insists it is far too dangerous for him to go alone. Joshua warns that if a demi helps, war with the Demon King's army will break out. He turns to them and realizes their involvement would put everyone at risk. Gritting his teeth, he steels himself to face the threat alone. He yells at his friends with fierce finality, ordering them to stay and wait for him. Ilya runs alone across the open plains, his worried call trailing behind him. Terrified human refugees huddle together inside a rattling cage. The blond man driving the cart shouts, in despair that they will be caught. Joshua steps in front of them and tells the startled human to keep running north. Promising to buy them time, he watches the grateful man urge his horse forward. Using his magic, he shouts craft fence as a barrier erupts from the ground. Peering from behind the massive structure, he confirms the enemy is here. The brutish orcs skid to a halt, unsure who he is as their leader roars. They burst out laughing, mocking the lone, unarmed human who dares to face them. Grimacing, he thinks how terrifying their cruel cackling always sounds. Despite his fear, he plants his foot firmly and prepares to stand his ground. Shouting a defiant challenge, he vows to take down as many of them as he can. An orc warrior charges forward, sneering that only Joshua will die. He makes a simple plan and fashions a pointed stick to stop their charge. He knows he probably can't use the same move twice. A sudden flash of movement draws his gaze, and his face shows shock. Moving in a blur, Ilya cuts down the charging orc with a single clean slash. Frozen in disbelief, he tries to understand how she appeared and struck so quickly. Ilya declares his enemies are theirs, and she will fight them all. With her sword poised, she urges him not to shoulder the burden alone. Remaining orcs murmur in confusion at the sudden turn of events. She promises to help him the same way he once helped her. A lovely floral border frames the two as they stand united against the horde. Shouting her name in alarm, he calls to her as she prepares to face the enemy. An orc sneaks up behind her and swings its weapon down toward her. Smiling knowingly, she effortlessly ducks under the clumsy swing. A quick disabling slash makes the orc grunt in pain. Issuing an ultimatum to the horde, she offers to spare them if they retreat now. Orcs scoff at the thought of backing down from someone like her. Their leader roars for an attack, refusing to back down. Joshua realizes the orcs believe Ilya is human, which keeps the other demis safe. Telling her not to push herself, he says he'll lure the enemies away. She ignores his plea and rushes into the fray, leaving him exasperated. She becomes a whirlwind of steel while he forms a shield to block another foe. Glaring at the battered survivors, she asks if they still want to fight. Remaining orcs flinch as her power strips away their bravado. Fueled by pride, they gave one last defiant roar, refusing to be defeated by her. Joshua clenches his fist as he and Ilya brace for the final charge. A sharp click signals a hidden mechanism has been activated. A massive volley of sharpened stakes shoots out from behind the fence, catching Joshua off guard. Turning back toward the village, his eyes go wide with stunned realization. All his friends are lined up along the wall, armed and ready to fight. A diverse group of demi-humans holds their crossbows aimed to support their friends. Ilya calls his name, snapping him out of his stunned trance. Apologizing for acting on her own, she looks sincere. He reassures her it's okay, since they eliminated the enemy and kept their secret. Ilya breathes a relieved sigh, her face flushed from the afterglow of victory. Joshua focuses on the future, knowing the Demon King's army will investigate. He knows their hidden village will eventually be discovered. Surveying the fallen orcs, he orders the bodies cremated. He tells Ilya they also need to strengthen their defenses for what lies ahead. They return and are surprised to find a bustling crowd of human refugees. Meta, a horn girl, rushes toward them and calls their names urgently. She reports injured people were at the gate and they are now receiving care. Joshua thanks her for the update and goes to talk to the newcomers himself. Ilya offers to help if he needs anything, and Meta nods in agreement. Human refugees, including tired adults and children, talk among themselves. A young horned demi-human watches with a mix of curiosity and concern. Barrick, a young blond man, spots Joshua and runs toward him. Grabbing Joshua desperately, he asks whether he is a friend to the demis and pleads for help. Joshua calmly reassures the frantic man not to worry about anything. He says the demis will help anyone who does not intend to harm them. When Barrick calms down, Joshua asks where his group escaped from. Virik grimly admits they are from Suburno, which fell to the Demon King's army. Joshua reels as he learns that all the cities to the south have been conquered. Virik confirms the city has fallen and answers Joshua's question about the army. He reports a 5,000-strong orc force is advancing north. Joshua asks about their commander and learns his name is Bish the Orc. Barik says Bish is battle-hardened and wears gear made from demon horns. Joshua is hit by a dark memory when he realizes Bish's troop destroyed his homeland. After thanking Barik for the information, he advises him on a safe route north. A horn girl watches the two men standing by the refugee wagons. A smiling demi-human offers food to the refugees, urging them to eat before they leave. Moved by their kindness, Barik asks if they can really accept the offer. They shake hands and formally introduce themselves. Later, refugees and villagers share a lively communal meal. Merc, a fox-eared girl, stares intently at the humans and catches Joshua's eye. It's been a long time since she's seen any humans besides him, she explains. She reveals she thinks one of them is waiting for something, not just watching. Her sharp gaze lands on Barik, who eats with a troubled, distant expression. Barik, a blond man, stands up abruptly and shouts for his people to stop. Joshua watches with concern and calls out to Barik to wait. Joshua watches the commotion from a distance, trying to figure out what is happening. Barik insists he cannot accept any more help because he feels it would be wrong. With grim resolve, he vows they will fight the Demon King's army alone. Turning, he holds out a small wooden crate and asks Joshua to take it. Barik explains her capture as a terrified demi-tiger girl trembles inside. He admits his shame and vows to repent for those terrible intentions. Joshua beams as he praises Barik for changing his mind. Merc looks at the child and promises to find her some friends. Barik asks Joshua to take care of her, noting that demis have families. Joshua sees that Barik is unarmed and conjures weapons for him. Struggling with the heavy weapons, Barik thanks Joshua for everything. Joshua smiles gently and says he is a crafting magician. Gentle smoke drifts from the chimneys on the village rooftops. Joshua gathers his companions around a long table for a meeting. He apologizes for bringing such sudden news about the Demon King's army. Medellins Forward says they are all determined to fight. Joshua agrees, saying he hopes to avoid conflict if possible. Looking toward their fortified walls, he suggests a peace treaty may be possible. Agreeing, Ilyas says it's best to avoid any bloodshed. Meta remembers her ancestors wanted peace too. Joshua says they must prepare because they cannot fully trust the enemy. He proposes a proactive strategy to leave the village and fight. Ilya looks surprised, unsure that leaving their walls is actually safer. He says a long siege would wear them down and drain their resources. Joshua tightens his fist. He knows a battle of attrition means certain death. His companions grow worried as they realize they may be forced to leave anyway. He jerks his arm to emphasize his point. Taking action now, he argues, will prevent damage to their home. Doing so would also keep children and the elderly out of the fighting. Meta notes that demons are far stronger in a head-on fight. Ilya and Merc agree their strengths are best used outdoors. Joshua sizes up the orcs as strong but slow and unable to use magic. Ilya notes their traits resemble those of demons, but demons are more powerful. Their violet iron gear stands out as superior to the orcs' simple steel. Their only weaknesses are being outnumbered, inexperience, and the orcs' stubbornness. To wrap up, he asks everyone for their opinion on this risky plan. Tense silence falls over the council meeting. Meta speaks first, firmly agreeing with Joshua's proposal. Asuha and Merc nod together, silent and determined. The fleet representative shouts at support, fed up with being kept inside. Merc accuses them, saying the fleeps must also fight now. Reluctantly, the fleeps agree and realize they must charge. Touched, Joshua looks at them and thanks everyone. At his first command, they will all begin training with their new equipment. He assigns Merc to heal and asks Asuha to use her wind magic. He says he'll take care of the rest of the preparations. Looking determined, he says he's counting on all of them. His friends smile warmly, showing their trust in him. On the village rooftops, a voice confirms they understand. 3 days later, demi-humans train with their newly crafted crossbows. Acting as drill sergeant, Maida shouts the order to fire. She turns to Joshua and says firmly that anyone who missed must train harder. Joshua reviews the progress they've made building their own army. At the training grounds, demis train with a variety of weapons. Confident, he smiles knowing they now have the continent's best defenses. Meta proudly displays her new gear with a confident flourish. The little demi-tiger girl is amazed that Joshua made all their weapons. Children at a nearby fence call to her, inviting her to play. The Metanauts smile as the shy girl fidgets before joining them. Joshua observes the former prisoner is getting along with everyone. Meta is glad to be warmed up, but she stays quiet. She remembers the girl crying nonstop just days ago. Taking in the new mode, they admire the village's iron wall defenses. Joshua says with confidence that their town will not fall easily to any army. Meadow agrees but says their defenses can also be used for negotiation. Joshua says soberly they must still prepare for a possible fight. His companions stand ready and agree an attack may cause less damage. A newly built stone wall stands firm above the village. A magnificent hot spring appears, its water clear and its temperature adjusted. Satisfied, Joshua and Meadow watch and announce that it is finally ready. A sprawling multi-level hot spring complex serving the village is shown. Joshua says it's a reward for their hard work in preparing for battle. Turning, he sees the other girls already undressing by the bath. Meta snaps at them for not using the dressing room first. Other demi-humans are already relaxing peacefully in the steaming water. Ilya and Meta tell Joshua they're getting in and invite him to join them. Smiling brightly, Ilya says they made a special bath just for him. Another girl laughs, remembering how awkward he felt in the washroom. Meta shows off a private section walled off just for him. Flustered, Joshua realizes Suha lied about the wall's purpose. Medical confirmation shows Suha lied about it. Despite his protest that the BAF is too large, Suha explains their reasoning. Ilya lines in and insists they will all join him. Her eyes sparkle as she says that washing his back is their job. All the other girls protest, each wanting to wash his back too. Joshua's playful mood suddenly turns grim. A dark vision flashes through his mind, showing his friends dead on a battlefield. He snaps back to reality, his face haunted and distant. Apologizing to a worried Ilya, he says he needs to take care of something. He tells them to rest, keeping to himself the awful future he imagined. Worried, the girls watch as he decides to keep preparing. Joshua sits alone in his workshop on a pile of logs. He gets to work, scattering materials as he uses his crafting magic. Focused, he keeps crafting, his hands a blur of motion. The endless potential of his magic workshop amazes him. He knows he can store large amounts of material and even build walls on the battlefield. Ideas for new weapons and projectile systems flood his mind. Always thinking, he keeps making things to ease his deep anxiety. Joshua Niels works in his workshop, crafting nonstop, yet his anxiety remains. Believing he can win the battle, he still feels deep unease. From a distance, he judges the village is likely well equipped to win. A grim vision of his own death reminds Ilya that victory will still cost lives. He remembers their opponent, Bish, whose troops use gear made from nearly unbreakable demon horns. This knowledge gives him an urgent need to make more and be fully prepared for them. Evening falls and the sky darkens over the quiet village rooftops. From a distance, a figure watches Joshua sitting alone, still obsessively making things. Hearing his name called, he freezes and is pulled out of his focus. Ilya leans over him with a worried expression and gently urges him to rest. Surprised to see her, Joshua turns, the half-finished sword still clutched in his hand. Ilya pleads with him to tell her what is on his mind. She says he is always helping them, as shown by the new village. Thanks to his constant help, she says they would do anything for him. Ilya looks up at him and quietly agrees she feels the same strong connection. He admits their dedication is the reason he feels so deeply afraid. She looks at him puzzled and asks why he suddenly admits he's afraid. He says he's afraid of losing all his new friends and companions. Looking back, he remembers a time when his life was simpler and he had no friends. By then, he had no one left and nothing to lose. He now admits he met her and everyone else in that special place. One tear rolls down Ilya's cheek, showing the depth of his feelings. Her tears make him panic, and he insists he doesn't regret meeting any of them. With a small smile, she makes it clear she is happy he loves them so much. He quietly admits he does, his feelings for them now clear and undeniable. He says his desire to protect everyone is the real source of his fear. Gently taking his hand, she offers a comforting touch that grounds him in the moment. Taken aback by her gesture, he asks whether she has felt the same way too. Ilya tears in her eyes, says she is no longer afraid because he is here. Close-up of her eye reveals a new, unwavering resolve. Confident he will stand by them, she believes they can protect everyone. She meets his eyes with firm conviction and urges him to trust their strength. Smiling warmly, she pleads with him not to carry all his burdens alone. Joshua's expression softens as he looks at her, moved by her powerful words of support. He turns the conversation to the orcs they'll face in the coming battle. He reminds her that their General Bish uses weapons made from demon horns. Ilia's expression grows serious as she weighs the consequences of their enemies' weapons. He says the horns are so powerful and tough that Bish's armor seems unbreakable. She is unsure whether they are really unbreakable, even against other strong demon horns. Ilia steps closer and suggests that a weapon made from their horns could be the solution. Understanding spreads across Joshua's face as he grasps her brilliant idea. Holding her precious horn in her hands, she reveals the dark, elegant curve. He reels, realizing it is the very thing her father guarded with his life. She says she wants to use it to protect them because it is precious. Joshua is moved by her selfless, determined declaration and whispers her name. With his hand raised, he has made his decision and is ready to accept her incredible sacrifice. He grips the horn firmly and accepts her request without hesitation. Blushing, he promises to make something truly wonderful from it. Ilya smiles broadly, encouraging him to continue his work. Ilya watches as Joshua starts forging, magic swirling around him. He points out the horn is different from violet iron, which he can craft in a minute. Glowing, the horn draws his mana into a vessel that can never be filled. Under the night sky, powerful crafting magic keeps working around them. Extending his hand, he announces the forging is complete. Proudly, he lifts the finished weapon, a shimmering new katana. He describes its properties, saying it repels magic and cuts through anything. Ilya accepts the sword, gratitude shining in her wide eyes as she thanks him sincerely. Gripping the hilt firmly, she vows to use the weapon to protect everyone. Joshua clenches his fist, agreeing they will fight this battle together as a team. Ilya's face set with resolve as she agrees, wearing a determined, happy expression. He gently reminds her she still needs to rest before the fight. The next morning, their peaceful start is interrupted by an urgent arrival. A winged scout swoops down, reporting that demis with feline features are approaching. Joshua and his horned companion realize who the approaching group is. Far off, they spot a vast army approaching their massive walled settlement. Scuffing footsteps on the bridge announce the leader's arrival. Balon, the demi-tiger mercenary, and another girl recognize Joshua and look surprised. Joshua and his companions turn around to confirm the approaching mercenary's identity. Another demi-tiger girl clenches her fist and lets out an affectionate meow of recognition. Reese, the rescued demi-tiger child, dashes forward and gives a sis cry. The two demi-tigers hold each other in a fierce, heartfelt hug, finally reunited. Tears of relief stream down Reese's face as she clings tightly to her long-lost sister. Joshua confirms to Balon that the child is her daughter, which surprises her. Balon explains that the child was freed by the people who had passed by earlier. Her expression shows quiet, thoughtful acceptance of the news. Joshua, now serious, asks Balon what brings her to their village. Annoyed, she says she has to deliver a message to the orc general Bish. When asked, she says Bish will be passing a nearby road in 2 hours. She casually tells them this is their chance if they need to see him. Joshua watches the mercenaries leave with a thoughtful look. Meta, the horn girl, growls in frustration that Balon didn't even thank them. Joshua tightens his fist, determined to follow their plan despite his doubts. Meta and Ilya agree to station guards in the village and ready their forces. Ilya announces they will head to the road to intercept the orc general Bish. A new chapter opens to a vast landscape of mountains and forests beneath a cloudy sky. Ilya approaches Joshua, ready to report on their army's deployment. All their troops have been deployed for the upcoming battle, she confirms. A tactical map shows their formation and the locations of demons, werewolves, archers, and powerful golems. Meta says it has nothing to fear after these preparations. Joshua clenches his fist and admits he still hopes for a peaceful resolution. Waiting for the enemy, he admits his fear still remains despite their strength. Ilya gently takes his hand, a quiet gesture of support and reassurance. Her touch startles him, but her presence and the others calm him. A small, grateful smile crosses his face, eased by the steady support of his friends. The ground shakes as the massive orc army comes into view. A small band of allies holds their ground, waiting for the enemy to arrive. Bish, the massive commander, demands to know who they are when he sees their mixed group. Standing with his companions, Joshua introduces himself and their group as the Fendel Alliance. The orc commander narrows his eyes at the unfamiliar name, thinking this gathering of demis is strange. Standing to one side, Balon reveals they are the very demis from the fortress. A sinister goblin commander claims this new territory as his and demands total obedience. Joshua takes a firm, neutral stance, refusing to fight or help. The goblin leader scoffs at their small group's attempt to negotiate terms. Pointing his finger sharply, he prepares to deliver a simple ultimatum. He demands a horrific tribute of 10 live demons every year. He reveals a wish for more weapons forged from their exceptionally tough horns. Angry, Joshua leans forward and shouts that they will never hand anyone over. The demi-tiger Balon watches, annoyed by the goblin's arrogant defiance. Joshua steps forward, showing he is the highly skilled crafting magician they seek. Bish, the massive orc commander, twitches his eye, revealing a flicker of interest. Balon confidently vouches for Joshua's unparalleled crafting skills, having seen them firsthand. Joshua realizes this could be Balon's way of offering it. Staggering, he contemplates the immense sacrifice of becoming Bish's personal slave. Thinking of his friends living in peace makes the terrible price feel worth it. Ilya grabs his hand tightly and vows never to let him go alone. She confronts him and asks why he would give himself up for them. From behind her, he still considers his self-sacrifice a viable option. Ilya reminds him firmly that he fought for everyone, not just himself. She firmly vows never to abandon someone so selfless. Meta and a fox girl call out possessively, declaring Joshua is theirs. Ilya insists he belongs to her and dismisses the others' claims as utterly pathetic. Meta calls out Ilya for trying to act mature right after she argued. Flustered, Joshua says this is not the time to bicker. United, the girls vow they will never give up Mr. Joshua. Valon sighs in exasperation as the enemy commander laughs at their inner turmoil. Bish admits he never meant to negotiate and planned to take them by force. The orc commander roars and orders his waiting army to attack. Meta jumps into the fight and tells her opponents not to make it boring. Furious, the orc warrior sneers at the female demi-human's audacity. Her heavy weapon slams into his, the metal creaking under the immense force. The strike shatters the orc's weapon and sends cracks through the ground. Comrade murmurs in disbelief, stunned by her impossible display of strength. The goblin commander rallies his troops and orders them to keep their heads. Meta confidently says their combined strength can defeat their enemies. Demi-tiger Balon is ordered to attack the enemy from behind. Joshua knows the enemy discovered his hidden troops but stays confident. Meta turns to Ilya and vows to protect Joshua from any approaching enemies. Meta shouts urgently for Ilya to press forward into the battle. Ilya places her trust in Meta as she prepares to charge forward. Ilya launches a powerful leap into the goblin horde with his sword raised. Her blade blurs, slicing through several goblins in a single sweep. Goblins cry out in pain and anger under her ferocious assault. Meta cries out in pain as she takes an attack meant for Joshua. Alone, Ilya stands her ground against several attacking goblin soldiers. In disbelief, the goblin commander watches demis defeat his forces. Furious, he questions the honor of his faltering soldiers. From the rear, Meta and Joshua saw the commotion and tried to figure out what was happening. A frantic goblin soldier rushes to his leader and reports trouble in their ranks. Their back line is under attack and the demi-tigers have betrayed them, he reveals. Joshua freezes, realizing Balon's mercenaries have joined the fight. Merc the White Wolf rushes to Joshua to report the situation. Joshua told Merc that this sudden turn of events was unexpected. Doubting Balon's motives, he issues a new command. He orders Merc to start the operation, but instructs them not to attack the demi-tigers. Seething, the goblin commander grits his teeth and curses Balon for the betrayal. Balon's forces brutally attack the goblins, who bemoan the poorly timed betrayal. Merc's sudden howl startles the goblin soldiers during the battle. This house announces the wing Tengu's dramatic arrival from the forest. Horned demons and werewolves also step out, revealing more of their hidden powers. The goblin leader scoffs, knowing about the hidden troops all along. A massive water vortex crashes down and overwhelms the goblin army. A powerful torrent tears through their ranks, scattering the remaining soldiers. York Commander Bish listens as Ilya announces the battle is over. She will spare their lives if they return to their homeland now. Bish slams the ground and declares himself king of all orcs. Boasting that he is the strongest, he says he is destined to kill the Demon King. Blonde warrior Ilya reveals her demonic heritage to the orc commander Bish. Bish laughs loudly and cruelly claims her lost horn was used for his weapons. Ilya firmly denies the claim, saying the horn is the one her father brought back to her. Bish's face briefly registers recognition as he realizes who she is. He recognizes her as Ultra, the daughter of the demon chief he once fought. She angrily denies his claim that her father ran away, but Bish corrects her. He says her father ran only after he lost his horn and could no longer fight. The orc commander orders her to inspect his weapon closely. Twirling the spear, he shows the tip is made from her father's horn. He grins cruelly and vows to hang her horn next to it on her body. Furious, Ilya lunges forward as her sword slams against his weapon. Bish mockingly asks if she's losing her temper as her face twists with fury. She attacks without pause, demanding he give back the horn he should not have. The orc commander coldly dismisses her and calls her father a weakling. She remembers painfully how her father gave his life to get her horn back. Grief overwhelms her and she screams in denial, insisting her father was not weak. On the sidelines, her friends shout warnings and urge her to ignore his taunts. Driven by anger, she overreaches with a wild swing and misses her target completely. Bish seizes the chance and swings his massive weapon down in a crushing arc. The attack comes down at breathtaking speed, leaving Ilya watching in shock. Reacting instantly, Joshua casts a desperate spell to create a protective wall. A solid stone wall shoots up from the ground in a flash of magic. The weapon slams into the barrier in a massive explosion. The wall shatters and Ilya survives, knocked back by the shockwave. Joshua rushes to her side and calls her name while she lies in the rubble. He helps her up and listens as she apologizes for acting recklessly. An ally notices Bish's armor, and Joshua plans to act as a distraction. Ilya grabs his arm, her eyes showing a new determination. She reminds him they promised to face this challenge together. Facing the imposing commander, Joshua quietly agrees to her play. Sharing a determined look, they decide to defeat him together. From afar, Bish roars furiously and calls them weaklings for their efforts. Confidently, he insists they will never be able to defeat him. A massive blast slams into an armored figure's head, hurling them backward. A red-haired ally recalls using the desperate tactic of throwing a gunny sack of coal. Frustrated, he realizes that despite igniting it, the enemy general, Bish, is still alive. Through the swirling smoke, Bish stands tall and declares he is the strongest warrior on the field. A sudden surge of power from his opponent jolts the orc commander. Ilya's sword collides with Bish's weapon, sending sparks flying. Her blade groans under the orcs, crushing pressure. You can see the strain in their locked weapons as the ground cracks beneath them. An allied orc soldier watches Ilya's desperate struggle from the edge of the battlefield. Joshua sees the wider battle turning decisively in their favor. He realizes Ilya wants to defeat Bish to avenge her father's death. Bish laughs, taunting her that hornless demons are powerless. Ilya's hands start to blade from gripping the sword hilt so hard. Noticing her begin to falter, Joshua shouts encouragement, telling her she can do it. Bish recoils in shock, trying to make sense of the sudden surge of power he feels from her. Dark energy swirls around Ilya's sword as it starts to draw blood from her hands. Stunned, the orc feels her power rise suddenly and inexplicably. The horned demon woman realizes in awe that Ilya's blade is drawing her blood. Ilya lets out a primal scream as a powerful, swirling dark aura envelops him. The tables turn and Bish is pushed back by the female demi. He fights to keep his footing, his feet digging into the dirt under her immense pressure. Onlookers are stunned and cannot believe the orc king is losing. A loud crack rings out and bashes the massive weapon as it begins to buckle. Ilya delivers a final, decisive strike, breaking his weapon and cutting him down. Surviving orc soldiers murmur in disbelief at the sight of their fallen leader. Ilya stands victorious over Commander Bish's defeated body. The orcs stand frozen in shock, with their boss and commander now gone. Stunned, they learn their supposedly invincible commander has been killed. The goblin soldier flinches as the reality of their general's defeat sinks in. Triumphant, the horned demon woman announces that Ilya has killed the enemy general. The entire allied army breaks into a thunderous cheer of victory. Smoke drifts up from the silent battlefield after the last cheer. Joshua stands dazed with relief, quietly taking in that they have won. Diverse demi-humans celebrate their hard-won victory together. Ilya and the Horned Woman share a tearful, joyful moment during the celebration. Demi-tiger mercenaries rummage through the spoils of war, collecting loot. Joshua calls to Balon, their cat-like demi-human leader. Walking up to Balon, he thanks them sincerely for their vital help. Balon shrugs off the thanks, saying they were just riding on their coattails. He says they simply sided with the winning team, that's all. Smirking, he says betrayal is their specialty. Joshua persists, offering his thanks again despite Balon's cynical remarks. Balon repeats there is no need to say thanks, they are taking all the loot. He says they had already decided to switch sides because it was bad for business. Joshua worries about their future, aware their betrayal will have consequences. He invites the Grant mercenaries to join their demi-alliance. Balon is surprised by the generous, unexpected offer. Balon lets a small, amused smirk form as he considers the proposal. He politely declines, saying he's hard to please and not someone who stays in one place. Joshua smiles warmly and assures him they are welcome anytime. Balon says he might consider it if things get difficult, but warns they are selfish. Spinning his weapon, he tells Joshua to be ready for that possibility. Joshua watches the mercenaries leave, giving one last wave. Silence hangs over the battlefield as Ilya stands above Bish's fallen body. Nailing, she focuses on something on the ground. Joshua spots her and rushes to her side. He praises her for beating such a powerful opponent. Joshua agrees their enemy was extremely strong. Ilya points out that he also avenged his hometown. Modestly, she says the victory wasn't hers alone. Her success is thanks to Joshua and all their friends. She whispers through tears of relief that she finally got it back. Cradling it, she retrieves the spear tip made from her father's horn. Joshua points out that Balon took most of the loot, but left the demon horns. Ilya gives her father's horn to him to help the village. She asks him to hold on to it until that time comes. Joshua nods firmly and replies with a quiet okay. The Horned Woman says she can't believe they defeated the army. All credit for their victory goes to Joshua's leadership. A small fox-like creature agrees, aware that he was smart. The fox nuzzles Joshua's leg, showing admiration. The other girls join in and pat his head to show their gratitude. Smiling warmly, Ilya agrees it was all thanks to Mr. Joshua. One of the girls says they only won because he was with them. Joshua quietly rejects their claims and looks up at the sky. He insists their victory came from everyone giving their absolute best. Smiling sincerely and warmly, he thanks them all. Facing their massive walled village, he says it's time to go home. The next day, a clear, calm sky hangs above the village wall. Asuha, a winged scout, swoops down from the sky calling for Joshua. According to her, there was no sign of the enemy army to the south. Feeling relieved, Joshua suggests they celebrate with a victory feast that evening. Walking through the village, he checks if anyone needs anything. His peaceful walk is interrupted by loud shouts and the clang of weapons. He finds Meta at the training grounds, scolding her trainees for their weakness. Meta's tense expression relaxes when she sees Joshua approaching. Running up to him, she calls his name excitedly. Proudly, she asks if he came to see her heroic figure. He says he was just checking the supplies, and she smiles, saying they have everything. He offers to make anything else she might want. Meta pauses thoughtfully, considering what else she wants. Nodding without speaking, she locks her gaze on him with unnerving intensity. Her flushed, intense stare leaves Joshua completely confused. Surrounded by questions, he asks her what is wrong. If she feels embarrassed, he suggests she whisper her request to him. Accepting his offer, she tugs his sleeve and asks to speak privately. Leaning in, she cups his ear and whispers a secret. She whispers a shocking request to have his children. Shock crosses Joshua's face at her words. Meta makes clear she wants many of them, her expression earnest. Overwhelmed, Joshua lets out a panicked blade and rushes away from the scene. Terrified by Meta's proposal, Joshua runs off, bleeding like a frightened sheep. Eyes spiraling, he thinks about his undignified, sheep-like escape. Hidden behind a building, he admits to himself that he nearly lost his mind. Merc finds him, sees his red face, and the man says he was just jogging. On another note, Merc proudly says she has made the fridge even colder. After hearing the practical news, Joshua realizes they will need a bigger refrigerator soon. After assessing their hunting success, he decides they must set a daily limit. Merc offers to set the new hunting limit herself to prevent overhunting. Joshua becomes serious and says they need to have an important talk. Merc's eyes sparkle as she makes a direct and unexpected marriage proposal to him. He is left speechless by her sudden, serious declaration. Continuing calmly, she says their next step is to have a child. This child will become the tribe's successor, she explains. Flustered Joshua realizes she is proposing they become formally engaged right now. Leaning in, she tells him werewolves cannot marry until they are adults. A small, confident smile crosses her lips as she waits for his decision. Reluctantly, he agrees to play along, hoping she'll find someone else later. Claiming him as hers, she draws him into a tight, possessive embrace. Joshua, stunned by her actions, demands to know what she is doing. She says she is marking him with her scent to claim him as hers. Flustered, Joshua endures her gentle nuzzles as she marks him. Small slime whiz appears and calls their names, surprised by the scene. Later, Asuha floats gracefully, ready to show Joshua her improved flying skills. He reassures her she doesn't need to, because her flying is already excellent. Merc appears suddenly and grabs Isuha's arm, breaking their quiet moment. Joshua is stuck between them while Merc tugs at his clothes to get attention. Merc tells Suha she is in the way, but Suha insists on doing her demonstration. Joshua moves to mediate and asks Merc to wait while Asuha promises to be quick. Asuha steadies herself and swings her wand with a determined flourish to unleash her magic. Joshua is suddenly lifted into the air by her wind magic, leaving him shocked. Looking down, he is utterly amazed by the strange sensation of floating. Asuha proudly says practicing wind magic has given her new abilities. Now she can fly on her own and make others fly as well. Stunned, Joshua cries out in amazement at her incredible new skill. Together they saw a spot high above the sprawling village that he calls awesome. Asuha watches him as he marvels at the stunning view from above. She remembers hearing how he quickly helped grow the once empty village. Humbly, he says he only made things while others gathered materials. Admiring him, she comments on his modesty. He smiles warmly and tells her she is not selfish either. A thoughtful look crosses her face as she prepares to ask. Floating in the sky, she asks to be selfish for a moment. Taken aback, Joshua agrees as long as it's something he can do. Asuha shouts a marriage proposal, leaving Joshua to yell in exasperation. She vows always to care for him and never cause him any trouble. She promises not to embarrass him in front of others. Before he can react, she pulls him into a tight hug in midair. She makes it clear she will only mess with him out of sight. Holding him close, she pleads for him to understand how deeply she loves him. Flustered, Joshua acknowledges her feelings, but looks overwhelmed by the situation. A terrifying demonic figure appears behind him, radiating a dark aura. A murderous feeling washes over him and makes him shiver with fear. Down below, villagers murmur nervously as they sense the oppressive presence. The figure turns out to be wearing a fearsome, horned hyena mask. Oni's raw presence floods Joshua's senses. He starts wobbling and shaking, losing his balance in the air. Panicked, he says he is completely losing his balance. Yuzua shouts his name as they both start to fall from the sky. Below, Ilya remembers a mythical creature with a terrifying, otherworldly face. The memory becomes the image of a hyena mask and an Oni. The last time the hyena called her name is still fresh in her memory. The creature's face had already changed into hers, and she was terrified. Falling, Joshua accepts his fate, convinced he's finished. A strange calm settles over him as he accepts that he will probably die. Consciousness slips away as Ilya's faint cry is the last sound he hears. His world comes back in a dizzy flash, suspended in a jelly-like bubble. On the ground, he touches his face, relieved but confused to be alive. Ilya explains that the fleeps cushioned his fall and are now exhausted. Looking around, he asks where everyone is, as if he had seen something forbidden. Elsewhere, the other girls busily prepare for the evening feast. Ilya confirms to Joshua that everyone is in high spirits and getting along. Smiling, Joshua already plans to stock up on food for the next few days. Turning to Ilya, he suggests they go gathering again, and she agrees. Joshua gently takes her hand in his. He chuckles and tightens his grip, touched by her calm joy. Smiling brightly, Ilya says they will always be together. Gazing over their village, he tells her he's glad to be with her. Joshua smiles warmly, showing he is happy and agrees with her.